It all starts with a towel hitting the floor as a steamy, red-haired woman steps out of the shower. Just then, a man in a black shirt starts taking off his clothes, telling Jia Yao that he's finally going to have her. Suddenly, he hears a voice from outside announcing that the food delivery has arrived. The doorknob clicks loudly, revealing that someone is already coming in. The dark-haired delivery guy wearing a face mask holds up the bag and announces the order. Fang Chou answers the door, giving the newly arrived guy a look of pure boredom. The redhead, wrapped in a towel, appears right behind him, startled to come face to face with our MC, who is equally shocked. In their surprise, the bag of food slips and falls to the floor. The man in black points a finger, calling the delivery guy a scumbag for being there. Completely ignoring the other guy, our MC tries to call out to his wife, hoping to understand what's going on. Fang Cheo then realizes who he is and scoffs, unable to believe he ended up ordering food from Wang Jia Yao's useless husband of all people. Ye Chen throws it in her face that he married her and served her family for 3 years, cleaning everything and sleeping on the floor, with ever even being allowed to touch her hand. Disappointed, he confesses that he always thought she was a woman of principles, but now she's messing around with another man. Jia Yao questions why he's even asking, claiming it's his own fault for being nothing more than a useless food delivery guy. She then clings to her lover's arm and boasts, asking if her husband knows that this is the master of the Fang family, flaunting assets worth tens of billions. The redhead continues spitting venom, claiming that only a man like this is worthy of her, not some poor loser. Her lover pulls her in by the waist and offers to give a 5-star review if the delivery guy gets on his knees and admits he was wrong. Fists. Our MC calls them both shameless for demanding an apology just because they have money. Fang Chou caresses the redhead's face, telling her not to worry about this guy. Trying to intimidate him, the rich guy grabs the delivery man's collar but ends up getting his wrist squeezed. Yelling in pain to be let go, Jia Yao rushes forward, shoving her husband away and screaming at him not to dare lay a hand on her man. With a furious look, she tells him to get lost immediately or she'll call security. The MC stares at the woman intently, murmuring her name as the weight of the betrayal sinks in. Memory flashes back, showing a photo on a table, revealing that she was the bride his grandfather had arranged for him. He remembers the moment he was in a car, looking out the window, and saw her for the very first time. Back then, he watched her walking in her school uniform and imagined they would spend a long and happy life together. Snapping back to his harsh reality, the guy lowers his head, admitting it was all a fantasy on his part and hoping that one day, she won't regret this. As the delivery guy walks away down the hall, the woman shouts from the doorway that her biggest regret in life is having a useless husband like him. The scene changes, showing the exterior of a large, mirrored commercial building in the city. Our MC is already on his delivery scooter, answering a call on his cell phone. On the other end of the line, a gentleman informs the third young master that his 3-year character assessment as the Wang family's son-in-law officially ends today. The old man continues over the phone, explaining that the young man's next mission will be a business trial. The voice informs him that the old master has acquired the Huaxing Group and appointed him as chairman to take control of everything, while the delivery guy silently agrees. When asked if they should formally welcome his wife into the Ye family, the young man takes off his helmet and declares there's no need, because she is not worthy. Later that night, the redhead arrives at her residence and opens the door to find someone waiting for her. Seeing her husband sitting in the dark, she asks if he's planning to run away over such a small thing, and he shoots back, asking if cheating is just a small detail. With an arrogant posture, she demands an apology, since he eats and lives in their house and has an obligation to put up with any of her mistakes. Out of patience, RM slams his hand on the table to cut off her annoying rant. Fed up, he throws it in her face that he endured 3 years of humiliation and abuse from her family without ever talking back, out of respect for the wife who pretended not to see any of it. With a firm gaze, the young man confesses that he only put up with it all because he cared about her, but from this day forward, he's done tolerating anything. Without hesitation, our MC takes the initiative and suggests they sign the divorce papers right away. The woman's eyes widen, indignant that he has the audacity to ask for a separation, and tries to blame him, claiming that if he weren't so useless, she wouldn't have done it. As he walks calmly through the place, he hears her threats about losing the luxury apartment and car, but just scoffs, saying he doesn't need any of that. The redhead agrees to the divorce, complaining that she doesn't understand what her grandfather was thinking, forcing her to marry a loser. As he walks right past her while she brags about her family's billionaire wealth, the young master declares that they will finalize the divorce at the courthouse first thing tomorrow morning. The woman refuses to go the next day, explaining that it's her grandmother's birthday and the whole family needs to gather before 10 o'clock. The young man in the jacket says that since their union was decided by the previous generation, She should explain it to the family first, and he'll be waiting for her call. As soon as he walks down the hall, the redhead screams, calling her husband a loser and claiming that in a few days, he'll come crawling back to beg for forgiveness. Now on the street, walking in the rain, his phone rings. It's his driver, letting him know the car is waiting around the corner. Upon arriving, the young master is greeted by a line of luxury cars and several men in suits bowing respectfully in the downpour. One of the subordinates tries to cover his boss with an umbrella, but the young man immediately refuses the gesture. Running a hand through his wet hair, he takes a deep breath and comments that the cold rain will help clear his head a bit. Now wearing an imposing overcoat amidst his guards, he gives the order for everyone to leave. The fleet of $1 million vehicles takes off down the wet streets, catching the attention of pedestrians who marvel at the machines. A few people on the sidewalk point in awe, seeing so many exclusive models together and wondering what's happening in the city. The next morning, the redhead walks through her condo complex, intrigued to see all those expensive cars leaving and guessing that someone very important must have paid a visit. The truth is, the world knows the big billionaire families but is unaware that the Yi family is the most mysterious, maintaining a low profile despite their assets exceeding 100 billion. Flying high in a private helicopter, the young master listens to his subordinates' instructions while observing the landscape below. From the age of 3, the heirs of this family undergo insane training, mastering martial arts and musical instruments by 5, and completing college by 18. With a serious gaze fixed on the aircraft window, our MC reflects on how the family elders assign special tests to forge the character of their successors. A distant memory shows his grandfather telling him about the arranged marriage, asking him to keep his identity a secret during the test. As an obedient heir, he accepted the challenge willingly at the time, moving into the Wang family's home without complaint. With a long sigh back in the present, the young master walks through the corridors, greeted by employees, and concludes that all of that is finally over. With arms wide open before a colossal, illuminated property, he announces aloud that Yi Chen has finally returned to his true home. The next day at 10 in the morning, the hall of the luxurious villa is already packed, with guests celebrating the matriarch's birthday. Sitting in her armchair with a small dog, the old Mrs. Wang asks her granddaughter why her useless husband hasn't shown up for the party. Though with a wine glass in hand, the redhead tries to hide her nervousness, making up an excuse that he probably went to work. A nosy relative bursts out laughing, finding it hilarious that he's delivering food, and says she felt so embarrassed when she saw him driving her car down the street. The matriarch gets annoyed with her son-in-law's lack of manners and orders them to get the irresponsible bum to the party immediately. Aware that she can't hide it anymore, the redhead interrupts her grandmother, confessing that the real reason for his absence is because they are getting a divorce. An agitated uncle points his finger, asking who gave permission for that, since the marriage was an express order from the girl's late grandfather. With fake tears streaming down her face, the woman accuses her husband of having a mistress, knowing deep down that she needs to flip the script before the family finds out about her own affair. The elderly woman is shocked by the revelation, calling the young man an animal for chasing other women after everything the family gave him in cars and mansions. One of the redhead's relatives scoffs at the situation, remembering that she never let her husband touch her in 3 years, and asks if she was just saving her purity to land a rich guy. With a sharp tap of her cane on the floor, the grandmother decrees that even so, the son-in-law had no right to cheat and demands they bring that animal there to face the family's justice. The redhead answers her phone, hastily confirming something with the person on the other end of the line. Our MC answers the call, wanting to know what it's about. The woman tells him her grandmother wants him there, but she gets a blunt reply that he's not coming. She pulls the phone away from her face, unable to believe that guy had the audacity to hang up on her. When she tells the old woman he's not coming, the matriarch gets furious, saying that a live-in son-in-law is nothing more than a dog and shouldn't have that kind of temper. Matriarch then points to a man, asking Xiaoji to go get the guy, and the preppy dude accepts the task, thinking it's a great opportunity to crack his knuckles and beat up Yi Chen again. The guy immediately turns his back and walks off, determined to complete the mission. The old woman turns back to the guests, announcing that the reason she called everyone so early is to make an important announcement. She explains that Pingqing Real Estate has always collaborated with the Huaxing Group, and that yesterday, a mysterious new chairman dropped in out of nowhere, with no one knowing his identity. Since the family is negotiating a multi-million-dollar contract that hasn't been signed yet, the old woman decrees that building a good relationship with this new boss is the top priority for their future. Our MC, dressed in a suit, listens as his subordinate asks what he plans to do. The young master explains that it's not time to reveal his identity yet, as it's much easier to observe the situation while the enemy is in the dark. A short time later, already on his scooter, the young man receives a call from Wang Xiaoji. Driving his car, the preppy dude asks where he is so they can talk and gets the reply that a delivery is being made at the Elvayuan condominium. With a malicious look, the guy says he's on his way and tells the delivery man to wait. A luxury sedan brakes sharply, cutting off the delivery scooter's path on the street. The preppy guy opens the door, ordering the young man to get in the car, because his grandmother wants to see him. Standing his ground, our MC retorts that even if the old woman begs for Jia Yao's sake, the divorce is happening, and questions on what grounds she wants to apply her family justice. Annoyed by the audacity, the raid head's relative curses the young man, asking if he's out of his mind to refuse the matriarch's orders. Pointing his finger aggressively, he accuses the son-in-law of finding another woman, dishonoring the Wang family, and for that, he deserves to be taken out. Taking off his helmet, the delivery guy lets out a sarcastic laugh upon hearing that his wife spread the lie about him having a mistress. Confused by the reaction, the guy in the car yells, asking what's so funny. With a dark expression, our MC mutters that shameless woman should have a limit to her bullying. Intimidated, the preppy guy starts to sweat, noticing that the delivery guy's gaze has suddenly changed, looking like a superior looking down on everyone. Trying to hide his fear, the relative tells the trash to get in the car, kneel at the hotel entrance, and wait for the banquet to end to accept his punishment, but our MC says again that he's not going anywhere. The preppy guy gets out of the vehicle, threatening the young man and warning that it looks like he's asking for another beating. Before he can even finish the sentence, the guy takes a powerful spinning kick to the chest, flying backward from the impact. Holding his sore face, the guy pulls out a weapon, tapping it angrily for being hit, and promises to carry out his grandmother's justice by beating the trash to a pulp. Throwing a quick punch at the delivery guy's face, the aggressor charges forward. Without the slightest difficulty, the young master blocks the attack, firmly gripping his opponent's wrist. With his free fist, our MC lands a direct punch to the preppy guy's face, who spits blood from the force of the impact. Lying on the ground, the defeated man hears the warning that the young man is no longer the Wang family's dog who comes at any call. Clenching his own hands, our MC declares that unless he wants to go, no one can give him orders. Scrambling back on the ground, the coward points a finger, threatening the son-in-law and telling him to just wait and see. The scene changes, showing the imposing glass facade of the Wanhao Hotel under a blue sky. In the ballroom, guests make way, telling the matriarch that her grandson has finally returned. The old woman praises the young man's efficiency, just as the black sedan pulls up to the event's entrance. With his clothes wrinkled and covered in bruises, the guy stumbles out of the car, crying out for his grandmother. The old woman becomes frantic, asking who beat up her good grandson like that, and gets the answer that it was Jia Yao's useless husband. A man in a suit approaches, furious to learn that the trash dared to hurt his son, and declares that he wants him gone for good. The beaten son suggests calling the police to deal with the aggressor. The matriarch forbids the idea, stating that this is a family matter and that involving the authorities would only spread their shame around. Looking at the beaten man's father, the old woman tells him to use his underworld contacts to teach that beast a severe lesson and bring him back, dragging him if necessary. Half an hour later, the delivery guy is walking through a residential complex with a bag in his hands when he hears footsteps approaching. Two huge goons stop in front of the young master, blocking his path and telling him to come with them. Without showing any fear, the delivery guy deduces they were sent by the Wang family and informs them that today is his last day of work and he's not going anywhere. One of the brutes lunges forward, throwing a punch and ordering his partner to break the target's hands first and talk later. Screams of pain echo through the street as heavy blows are relentlessly thrown in the middle of the alley. Our MC adjusts his mask, sighing in relief that he didn't let that affect his service. The two gigantic attackers are on the ground, completely bloodied and begging him to stop. The food bag slips from the young man's hand during the commotion, falling to the ground. In a swift move, he manages to catch the package before it hits the pavement. Wiping his forehead in relief, the young master celebrates the fact that the customer's delivery is still intact. Getting on his scooter, the delivery guy speeds through the city, remembering that he only has one last order for the day. Back at the birthday banquet, the redhead's uncle, shocked while looking at his phone, announces that the professional goons were messed up by Yi Chen. The old woman trembles with rage, wondering how that pathetic son-in-law could be a martial artist and questions if there's anyone capable of dealing with the beast. A woman interrupts the tense moment, announcing that Mr. Ma Kun, the general agent of Tuan Tuan Delivery, has just arrived to offer his congratulations. The beaten-up preppy guy whispers to his father, realizing that this is the MC's boss and claims to have a great idea to harm him. The executive enters the hall holding a luxurious bottle of wine as a gift to celebrate the birthday girl's longevity. The matriarch thanks him for the gift, while President Ma notices she seems to be in a bad mood, giving her an opening to confess that the family is suffering from a domestic misfortune. The man in the suit tells the detailed gossip about how the niece's useless husband caused all that trouble for the family. The executive feigns outrage upon learning that the son-in-law cheated on his wife and even hurt the young master, not understanding where he got the courage to provoke them. The preppy guy's father pretends to be sad, saying that if he had connections in the city, he would teach the ungrateful bum a lesson, cutting off the president who offers to help. The malicious smile. The redhead's uncle reveals that the jerk is actually an employee of Ma Kun's own delivery company. The executive's expression changes to a wicked grin, assuring the rich folks they can leave the entire matter in his hands. He immediately picks up his phone and calls an employee, ordering them to track Yi Chen's location and assign a delivery straight to that hotel. 15 minutes later, the MC's scooter parks right in front of the entrance to the huge, luxurious building where the banquet is taking place. Holding his helmet and cell phone, the young man tells the customer, Ma, that the order has arrived and asks him to come get it at the entrance. From inside the hall, the president rudely orders the delivery guy to bring the food inside. The young master refuses the order, explaining that the hotel's rules don't allow app drivers inside and insists that he come out. The executive exchanges a knowing look with the old woman, already setting up the next step of his plan. Without much argument, the man agrees over the phone and tells the employee to wait for him at the door. Holding the paper bag firmly, the young man waits patiently in the lobby until he hears the sound of several footsteps approaching. He soon realizes he's walked into a trap when he sees the old woman walking toward him, led by his company's president. Pointing his finger authoritatively, the executive orders the delivery guy to take off his work clothes and badge and hand them over to him right then and there. Not understanding the reason for this demand, the young man simply asks what that suit and tie guy means by that. With an air of superiority, the executive calls him an idiot and introduces himself as Ma Kun, the general agent of Tuan Tuan Delivery. Showing his cell phone, he threatens the delivery guy, stating that if he doesn't believe him, he'll have the manager who hired him call right now. Immediately, our MC's phone rings, with the manager on the other end of the line announcing that he's just been fired for offending the president. Satisfied with the situation, the suit and T-guy confesses he intended to end his career perfectly, but the jerk ruined everything, so he tells him to take off the uniform already. Without showing any concern, the young master unzips his work jacket, revealing a black shirt underneath. The beaten-up relative who was watching the scene bursts out laughing, calling the young man a dog and mocking him for losing all his previous arrogance. Throwing the company clothes on the floor, our MC hears his former boss brag that the agency contract expires this year. The executive gets confused, wondering how a mere delivery guy would know about the details of business contracts. With a confident look, the young man tells him there's no need to go to the capital to discuss renewal because he will no longer be the company's agent. Annoyed by the audacity, the suit and T-guy points his finger, questioning who he thinks he is to decide that, boasting about his close relationship with the franchise's CEO. From the other side of the hall, the old woman interrupts the argument, yelling for the beast to kneel on the floor for betraying his wife and assaulting her grandson. Sitting in her armchair surrounded by security, the matriarch decrees that today she will execute the family's justice in front of all the guests. Maintaining a firm posture, our MC refuses to kneel and tells the old woman to keep dreaming. The old woman then throws in his face the promise he made 3 years ago when he joined the family that he would accept punishment if he did anything to harm them. Casually, the young man confirms that his words still stand and that he wouldn't run from responsibility if he were in the wrong. The old woman approves of the answer and orders them to bring the Wong family's giant dragon ruler immediately. A luxurious wooden box is opened, revealing a heavy, golden instrument with carved details. The guests start whispering in terror, commenting that getting hit with that thing hurts for days and can even make someone's face rot. Without the slightest bit of pity, the matriarch orders the redhead's father to give the son-in-law 20 slaps to the face as punishment. Holding the golden weapon, the father-in-law approaches, stating that he failed to discipline him and will now teach him a lesson personally. The redhead steps forward, trying to stop her own father, asking to let her do the job. Our MC glares at her with contempt, remembering that the woman first cheated on him, then framed him, and now even wants the pleasure of slapping his face. With an arrogant expression, the wife pretends not to care about the accusations and just turns her head, snubbing the young man. Holding the instrument, the redhead claims that since he is her husband, hitting him would be the best way to save her own honor before the family. However, her father takes the lead, lunging furiously at the delivery guy and calling him a dog as he strikes. In a swift move, the young master dodges the attack and grabs the aggressor's hand, leaving his father-in-law completely shocked. With a violent pull, our MC snatches the golden ruler from the man's hands, who lets out a cry of surprise. Without hesitation, he uses the same weapon to land a powerful slap on the aggressor's face, making blood splatter. The crowd panics, unable to believe that the useless husband had the courage to fight back and strike a direct member of the Wang family. Trembling with rage, the matriarch points her finger, accusing the young man of not knowing his place, since there are several bosses and directors there who could have him arrested on the spot. Holding the ruler calmly, the young man argues that all the guests clearly saw that he only acted in self-defense against an armed attack. The father-in-law holds his injured face, calling his son-in-law untrustworthy for promising to accept the punishment and then going back on his word. The keeping his cool, our MC explains that he is willing to accept the family's justice as long as the prerequisite is that he has actually done something wrong. The old woman retorts that chasing women on the street behind her granddaughter's back and beating up her grandson are more than enough reasons. Raising his voice, the young man declares that for these 3 years, he loved his wife with all his heart, never wavering, and guarantees that she is the real traitor. Immediately, the guests start gossiping, remembering that in the past, the family really did want to marry the girl off to the young Master Fang Chiao. To defend herself, the redhead steps forward, asking her grandmother not to listen to such nonsense, justifying that she met the rich guy only to discuss financing for the real estate company. With an ironic smile, the delivery guy questions if someone needs to rent a hotel room and wear a bathrobe just to discuss business, calling everyone they're idiots if they believe that. The discussion is interrupted when someone loudly announces that young Master Fang has just arrived at the banquet. The preppy guy enters the elegant hall holding a gift, as everyone looks at him, seeking explanations. The redhead runs to her lover, desperately asking him to confirm that their meeting at the hotel was strictly professional and that her useless husband is setting her up. Feigning indignation, the rich guy asks the guests not to pay attention to the delivery man, claiming that he and the woman are completely innocent. Pointing his finger, the lover accuses the young man of having no photographic or video proof of the alleged affair at the hotel, knowing full well that he himself had deleted the recordings. Playing the victim, the suit, and tie guy reveals to the crowd that the real reason for the accusations is personal revenge over a food order. The lover continues his act, saying that the delivery guy's attitude was so terrible that he threw the food on the floor, and for that, received a 1-star review. Taking advantage of the general agent's presence at the party, the preppy guy asks the boss to confirm the app's records from the previous day. Looking at his phone, the ex-boss confirms the story of the low rating and reports that the registered reasons match exactly what the rich guy just said. The crowd turns against our MC, calling him a sewer rat for planning such a sinister revenge just because of a bad work review. Pressing her advantage, the redhead crosses her arms, demanding that her husband explain why he threw the food on the floor. Shamelessly, she answers her own question, claiming it's his fault for not being diligent at work and for having a terrible ability to handle pressure. The young man puts a hand to his face, letting out a dry laugh at the fickle woman's ability to completely flip the situation. Ignoring the lies, he looks directly at the grandmother, asking if she has any real proof that he sought out other women. The old woman is left speechless by the direct question, while her granddaughter looks away, feeling the weight of her guilt. With no way to prove it, the old woman decides to drop the cheating issue but states that the assault on her grandson is something that cannot be so easily forgiven. Seriously, the young man explains that the preppy guy attacked him with a knife at the entrance of the condominium and that the cameras and security guards can testify to his self-defense. Matriarch loses her patience, warning that if they involve the police, he won't get off scot-free either, accusing him of being ungrateful after eating the family's rice for years. Tired of the argument, our MC promises that as long as he's not provoked, he will absolutely not look for trouble with the aggressive grandson. Taking a deep breath, the young master makes a single request, demanding that the grandmother finally agree to the divorce between him and the redhead. Letting out a laugh of pure hatred, the old woman reminds everyone that the marriage was an irrevocable decision of her late husband. She continues her speech, revealing that despite her granddaughter being unhappy for 3 years, the family rejected the divorce several times just to honor the deceased's last wish. The old woman praises the redhead's beauty, stating that she is the most coveted woman in the city and deserves someone much better than a simple delivery guy. Stomping her foot, the matriarch announces that since the son-in-law slandered her granddaughter and beat her grandson, she will no longer follow the old man's orders and expels the young man from the Wang family. One of the guests quickly signals a waiter, ordering drinks to be served for everyone to celebrate the decision. The hall fills with toasts as the rich folks congratulate the old woman and the redhead for finally getting rid of that useless weight. The girl's mother joins the celebration, revealing an intimate secret that the couple slept separately for 3 years, and that the son-in-law never even touched her daughter's hand. The woman publicly brags that her daughter is still pure, leaving the redhead slightly embarrassed by the exposure. Our MC observes the entire ridiculous scene in complete silence, showing no emotion. He mentally concludes that this is his ex-wife's choice to let herself be valued like a commodity by her own family, to be devoured by the highest bidder. Picking up a glass of wine, the young man raises the drink, congratulating the woman on finally being able to find a man who is compatible with her. Arrogantly, the redhead warns that if he gets on his knees and begs now, she might ask her grandmother to postpone the divorce for a while. The young master lets out a sarcastic smile, asking if she really thinks he's going to beg for forgiveness after being cheated on. Slowly, he tilts the crystal glass, letting the dark liquid begin to spill over the rim. Pouring all the red wine on the floor in front of everyone, he coldly declares that she is simply not worthy of him. The redhead's eyes widen, exploding with rage, and she calls the young man crazy and cheap, unable to believe he had the audacity to ribble like that. The redhead recoils in disgust, telling her father to teach her husband a lesson because just divorcing him is letting him off too easy. The preppy uncle agrees, stating that the people of the Wang family are not to be bullied. With her hands on her hips, the old woman decrees that the delivery guy made her granddaughter waste 3 years of her youth and beat up her grandson, and she can't let that go unpunished, or the family would lose respect. Demanding loyalty, the matriarch asks the rich people present to help cut off all of the young man's means of livelihood in the city. The guests gossip, realizing that the delivery guy humiliated the family so much that the old woman wasn't satisfied with just a divorce. She wanted to see him starve. Representing the Fang family, the rich young master raises his hand, guaranteeing that all the major hotels in the city will blacklist his name. The preppy Fang Cho takes the opportunity to throw it in the young man's face that in the future, he will not only sleep with his ex-wife but also make him crawl and beg for mercy. Next, a fat man who owns restaurants announces that with his connections, the ex-husband won't even be able to get a side job in any nearby kitchen. The executive from 2121 Delivery also supports the old woman, stating that he will never be able to work in app-based delivery again. Surrounded by enemies, our MC thinks out loud, listing that the doors to restaurants, hotels, and deliveries have been closed, but he ironically wonders if there are other sectors around. Another rich man stands up, laughing, and warns that he's no longer welcome in the region's karaoke bars and pubs either. The beaten preppy guy's father scoffs at the young man's kung fu skills, claiming that no rich person would hire him as a security guard after all this, leaving him with no options. Some people at the event talk about the fact that there are too many rich people in the city, but admit that with all these influential people together, it will be very difficult for him to find a way to survive. Suddenly, footsteps echo through the hall, drawing the guests' attention as they part, mesmerized by the presence that has just arrived. Sitting comfortably on a sofa, a stunning woman with her legs crossed, wearing a low-cut red outfit, captures everyone's attention. The redhead's uncle stammers, asking when President Kuhn arrived and apologizes for not having received her properly from the start. Executive tries to butt in, asking who that beauty is. Scornful of the agent's ignorance, the redhead's uncle introduces the woman as the famous vice president of Hoshing Group, Qin Hongyan. The mention of the title startles some guests, who are reminded of the woman's power and influence. Behind her back, they say that although the new president of the group always acts mysteriously, with no one knowing his face, all the major orders actually passed through the powerful hands of Qin Hongyan. The rich men discuss that although the Wangs had made many friends in high society, no one could maintain good relations with all the city's big shots, except for this mysterious woman. Everyone agrees that with such a stunning face, she would be the object of desire for any rich man in Yunzhou. Realizing he's crossed a line, one of the guests quickly apologizes, feeling that his rude comments were not very appropriate. Vice President Kuhn adjusts her hair indifferently, not caring about the compliments and gossip around her. The fat man bows, begging her to support the Wang family's cause and agree to cut off the trashy son-in-law's finances, reminding her of the big deal they are closing. Slowly, the beautiful woman's hand moves across the table toward a cigarette case. Elegantly, she pulls a cigarette from the pack, catching the attention of the delivery guy who was still near her. Immediately, several men in suits eagerly approach, offering their luxurious lighters in an attempt to please her. The woman in red, however, simply ignores their flames, turning directly to our MC and calling him closer. The rich men around them swallow hard, indignant and confused as to why she would call over their biggest enemy. Finding it all very interesting, the young man focuses his gaze on the vice president, asking her straight up what she wants with him. Tilting her head, the woman just tells the delivery guy to light her cigarette. The executives nearly have a heart attack, wondering how that piece of trash could have the merit to receive such a privilege from a woman like her. Maintaining his posture, our MC simply replies that he doesn't have a lighter, leaving the beauty speechless. The beaten man's father gets furious, yelling that he dared to refuse the city's goddess publicly to her face, even with several rich men offering their lighters right in front of him. Slowly and majestically, Vice President Kyun rises from the sofa to face the young man up close. She asks for the young master's name right in front of her, her expression unreadable. The young man turns his head and scoffs, asking if she was deaf, since she just heard the Wong say the name Yi Chen so many times. The fat man steps forward, pointing his finger and telling him not to disrespect the executive, but is immediately stopped by a hand signal from the woman herself. Leaning into our MC's body, she whispers close to his face that she'll give him a way out, because after all, he has the same last name as the mysterious new president. Looking at the young man's features from very close, she says his appearance is very good and proposes to let him be her personal bodyguard in exchange for protection from the Wangs. The rich girls around them gossip, mouths agape, understanding that she has become captivated by the delivery guy's good looks. Wife watches the scene from a distance, clenching her teeth in pure rage, not understanding why Kyun Hongyan of all people would act this way with her useless ex-husband. In the midst of that curious exchange of glances, the young man thinks aloud that he doesn't know what Kyun Hongyan's new boss's full name is. Making an excuse, the beautiful vice president deflects the question, saying it would be very disrespectful if too many people knew his real name. With a slight smirk, the young man deduces that she indeed has no idea of the president's true identity, because if she knew, she wouldn't have asked him to light her cigarette earlier. Vice President Kyun then returns to her original proposal, stating she's willing to mediate the conflicts as long as he kneels and apologizes to the old woman, the aggressor, and his ex-wife. She even guarantees she'll hire him as a private security guard for 200,000 a year, securing the salary everyone is trying to take from him. The redhead bites her lip, holding her grandmother's arm, desperate to see the super influential woman meddling in everything and helping the one they just crushed. The old woman agrees and sighs in frustration that Kyun Hongyan is a woman of such a high level who took command so young, and that her presence has turned the situation around. Gossiping, the grandmother concludes that she is the type of person who never offends anyone easily and can make any man there lie down in gratitude and passion if she so desires. Instead of kneeling or celebrating, our MC refuses the offer with a cold expression. The vice president is startled, her eyes widening, and she points a finger, asking him to repeat himself, unable to believe he just refused her in public. Without warning, the young man leans in, lightly pinching the beauty's delicate ear, very close to her face, and repeats, word for word, that he refuses the offer again. Feeling a slight shiver, she puts a hand to her very red ear, panting from the handsome delivery guy's audacity. The redhead's uncle yells, calling him presumptuous for having touched the woman. But the young man scoffs, saying he thought she was a bit deaf, so he just spoke in a way she could hear better. Trembling with rage, the vice president stammers, cursing him for not knowing how to appreciate the good opportunities that come his way. Turning around, the executive announces loud and clear that she will also support the Wong family in cutting off all of that guy's funding in the city. With a cruel laugh, the redhead celebrates that now her ex-husband has completely lost the chance to become the executive's personal bodyguard and will no longer be able to survive without help. Supporting the woman's decision, the young man calmly provokes her further, asking if that sudden refusal represented just her or the entire Huaxing group. He presses on, reminding her that she is not the real president of the company, wanting to know with what authority she can dictate the entire group's financial decisions against a poor son-in-law. The argument silences the gossipers, who begin to doubt Hongyan, recognizing that she indeed does not hold the highest position to cancel deals on behalf of the boss without his consent. Cornered, the woman lifts her chin proudly and decides to reveal to everyone that the newly appointed president, Yi, is actually her secret lover. Upon hearing the word lover, our MC freezes in shock, his eyes widening, not understanding where she came up with that crazy idea. Red with embarrassment but maintaining the charade, she stomps her foot on the ground, questioning if there's anything blush-worthy or absurd about speaking the truth to his face. Unaware of the lies, the guests start connecting the dots and conclude that it makes sense for the so-called president to dominate Yunzhou with the support of the vice president like that. Very excited by the new discovery, the preppy guy from the Wong family applauds, realizing that the deal they want to sign is now guaranteed because their contact was with her. Vice President clears her throat to quickly change the subject, saying she hopes to keep all this a secret because her boyfriend likes to separate his professional life from his romantic one. With a hand over his mouth, the young master laughs, realizing that after bragging, she invented that excuse to prevent the lie from getting out and having to explain herself to the real boss later. Annoyed by the laughter, the beauty adjusts her clothes, staring at him and asking where he found the courage to laugh in the middle of that emotional speech. With a straight face, our MC continues to joke, saying he heard that President Yi is extremely handsome and talented, so she probably doesn't stand a chance with him. Taking the act even more seriously, the executive tosses her hair, lying that the rich man fell in love with her at first sight, even renting an island in South Asia just to beg her to date him. Observing the women in the hall impressed by the story, the young man makes a face, realizing that the vice president really knows how to spin a good tale. Annoyed by the delay, the ex-wife yells for our MC to just get it over with and go with her to sign the divorce papers. An executive raises a hand, asking for calm and suggesting that everyone should enjoy the birthday party first. Laughing to himself, the fat uncle of the family celebrates, saying he still has to thank President May for that earlier scene of the young man taking off his clothes and obeying orders. A subordinate agrees that seeing the useless guy act like a trained dog was classic, and if young Master Wang had recorded it, it could relieve a lot of stress in the future. Nearby, the suit, and Tai Guy calls the third young master to ask a question about that food delivery guy who always tries to suck up to the old master, inviting him to dinner. With furrowed brows, our MC tries to remember who he's talking about and asks if it's the CEO of Tuan Tuan Delivery, Wu Xiaohong. The executive on the other end confirms, laughing because the guy has a net worth of over 50 billion and thinks he's qualified to sit and dine with the old man. Turning his head and looking at the gossiping rich folks with an air of superiority, the young man tells his subordinate to contact him and inform him to revoke the agency contract in Yunzhou. Agreeing to the master's request, the executive also promises to arrange that dinner one of these days to compensate for how obedient he has been all these years. The atmosphere in the hall falls into a deep silence, and all eyes turn to our MC in the black shirt, who just gave that authoritative order on his phone. Suddenly, the preppy Fang guy bursts out laughing, unable to handle the joke, asking if he thought ordering the revocation of Agent Mi's qualification over the phone would actually stick. Points a finger at the delivery guy, mocking that he needs to pick a better occasion to act tough, because no one in that hall would be fooled by such a speech. The executive from the Fang group also joins in the joke, humiliating the young man by saying that everyone knows his grandfather was just a farmer living in the sticks, and telling him to stop dreaming that the guy has billions. Vice President Kyun just watches in silence, noting the exaggerated reaction of the rich folks to the young man's cold demeanor. In that same second, Executive May's cell phone starts to ring, and he answers happily, recognizing CEO Wu's voice on the other end, expecting to renew the contract. The shock comes when the CEO's voice echoes through the phone, revealing that he called specifically to notify him that the Tuan Tuan Delivery Agency qualification in Yunzhou has been officially revoked, effective immediately. The suit, and Taima freezes with the phone to his face, his eyes wide with panic, mentally screaming that there's no way this is happening, right in the middle of everyone watching the scene. He thinks quickly, concluding that he can't let the news spread in front of all these influential people, or he'll leave the party even more miserable than a stray dog. Trying to maintain a good, guy facade in front of the others, he fakes his voice on the call, saying that with the great friendship they have, of course, they will continue the partnership, and reminds him that he has already prepared the 8 million for renewal. Real boss's voice bellows angrily, asking if he's deaf and repeating that the agency has been terminated, so spending money is pointless because head Qualby's porters will be sending new directors to the city next month, and then he hangs up. Executive Ma swallows hard, his forehead covered in sweat, but tries to hide his teary face, stating with a fake smile that their cooperation will be very pleasant, so as not to admit defeat and humiliation. Our MC, already laughing internally, wonders if Butler Fang hasn't notified Wu of the decision yet, observing the shame written all over his lying ex-boss's face. Across the room, President Fang praises the fake success, congratulating him and assuming the call was to confirm the multi-million-dollar renewal. The preppy guy from the Wong family even raises his glass, offering a toast to celebrate the suit, and Tai Guy's new financial gains, who just chugs the champagne in one go, feeling defeat go down his throat. Suspicious, our MC narrows his eyes, asking in a mocking tone if Ma Kun is secretly crying after drinking it all so quickly. The vice president approaches the choking man, noticing his watery eyes, and also asks cynically if he's okay. Playing it off, he clears his throat, forcing a cuff and lying that the drink made him choke too fast. Crossing his arms, Yi Chen gives that death glare and confronts the liar, wanting to know why he doesn't tell everyone that his agency was just cancelled. Trembling with fury at being exposed, the man accuses the beast of spying on his conversation and throws all the blame on the company, claiming that Yunzhou was personally removed from Tuan Tuan's plans by the CEO. Smiling, the delivery guy understands his lie, willingly agreeing to do nothing about it since he still considers him the worst of his enemies there anyway. Executive Fang points at the young man, questioning if the competitor's surprise removal has anything to do with his presence, but quickly backs down, laughing and saying that trash like him has no influence for that. The man tells the others to calm down and not get stressed, as his humble family could never boss around businessmen, and if the guy were rich, he would never have stooped to being a pathetic son-in-law at the Wang's house for so many years. The old woman agrees, nodding her head proudly to see her son-in-law ridiculed, believing that Ye Chen's submission for the past 3 years proves he has no money or prestige and is indeed a useless wretch. Changing the subject, the suit and tie ma has the waiter take back the $90 bottle of expensive wine and claims not to feel well enough to participate in the party, retreating in humiliation. The matriarch doesn't care about his departure, as she realizes how the people around her only flatter and please as long as there's money involved, being a realistic mirror of the society of the rich. The hotel's master of ceremonies interrupts the debates, guiding that the official banquet will begin in a moment and suggests everyone take a seat for the preliminary soups in the main hall. Taking advantage of the opening, the ex-wife says that signing the divorce soon wouldn't affect the party's flow, begging the MC to just sign the document and leave at once. Very calmly, he just sits down at one of the tables, his plate already served, claiming that then everyone will wait for him to finish dinner before he signs anything, showing that he won't be kicked out so easily. A nagging red-haired relative notices their spoons lightly touched while they were serving themselves and reacts with disgust at the simple contact with the silverware, shouting that the useless guy touched her. The snob pushes her little plate, making a scene, claiming that Yi Chen's spoon touched hers, soiling the entire meal, and throws it all away. Without missing a beat, he looks at her with a plate of papaya served, asking in a mocking tone if she still really needed to eat papaya. Offended and blushing, the girl looks at her large cleavage, asking why she wouldn't need to eat that particular dish, surprised by the audacity of hearing from him that it's for breast enhancement. With a scowl, she looks away, huffing to her friend next to her that the beast even looked her in the face. The same relative runs to the matriarch, pointing in Yi Chen's direction, stating that besides being shameless, he didn't even prepare any birthday gift, which completely revokes his right to sit there and enjoy the banquet. The raidhead's father also agrees, demanding that the old woman make him leave his meal right there and disappear from the party at once. The food delivery guy ponders, thinking to himself that the family is full of integrity, wanting him to finish eating before, and in the end, wants to kick the guy out on an empty stomach before the official divorce papers. Accepting the criticism in part, he admits he didn't buy anything on the way but reflects that since he was about to sign his formal departure from the family on her 80th birthday, he decides to call his assistant to arrange for the best congratulatory gift in front of everyone. Weixef scoffs, laughing at his cynicism, and ironically asks if the man who gets by on sticky rice daily was going to deliver gifts pulled from the trash for her grandmother's 80th birthday. Cruelly, she demands that he end the fake call immediately, or she herself would take pity on him and order a cheap little gift for him to spare the Wangs even more embarrassment. Waving his finger in denial, the delivery guy cuts off the irony, dryly stating for her to just focus on eating before judging his call. After 10 short minutes, the party's luxurious entrance is the stage for the swift arrival of the app's motorcycle courier, who delivers the mysterious gift to the hotel's reception into the hands of a suited event staff member. Immediately, the head of security blocks access, claiming that unauthorized individuals are not allowed and stopping the boy without even seeing the small box in his hands. In a respectful tone, the delivery guy in the yellow jacket just asked the security guard which matriarch was celebrating her birthday in the hall, trying to at least leave the package there. The preppy guys at the door catch the commotion, already cursing the security guards and laughing that the beast ordered a snack via an app, as if that counted as an official gift. Not understanding anything, the delivery guy scratches his head, revealing to everyone that he accidentally bumped into a rich guy on a road, and he gave him $500 and the package to be delivered directly to that hotel as a tip for delivering birthday wishes to the old lady. Astonished, the family's preppy guy deduces that it was a businessman running late for the event and confiscates the luxurious box, opening it unceremoniously at the door before passing it to the birthday girl. Upon peeking inside, the relative's eyes double in size, and his face completely loses color, stammering about what he had just seen inside the small cube. When he lifts the lid tremblingly, it reveals an immaculate jade bracelet of the most exquisite ice, which doesn't even have semi-transparent pieces, demonstrating the supreme purity of the precious stone, shining in the hall. Holding the accessory and trembling with emotion, one of the rich guys guesses that it's a very selective piece of jewelry, that he would value it without a doubt, in the range of a full 10 million, leaving everyone speechless. The gossipers go crazy, gossiping that a trillionaire who casually gives such luxurious gifts would really need to be present there with everyone to prove respect for the Yunjo family and to show who sent it. In the distance with a humble meal, our MMC enjoys chewing calmly, paying no mind to the fuss he created at the reception while eating another dumpling. Seeing the excitement around the gift that was brought, the birthday girl herself, already impressed, praises that it is indeed the most expensive and luxurious thing presented this year, ordering them to find out who it was from right away to formalize the thanks on the microphone. The matriarch squints, reflecting with pride on the magnitude of the gifts in the hall, losing her mind as it's rare for a hidden figure of power to leave a mark out of the blue in her celebratory high society. The uncle evaluates with his wife, analyzing the wealthy families that are there compared to who didn't show up, trying to form a theory about the rich guy lost on the streets of Guang Road, where the delivery guy from outside had crossed. Placing a finger on her face in surprise, a more vain relative coughs loudly, suggesting with the utmost nerve and narcissism that the sender could be none other than a rich man blinded by passionate love for herself. Delighted with the possibility, her own father agrees, supporting and praising that his new daughter, who is over 20, has no commitments, has the most admirable physical attributes without a serious boyfriend yet, so she would soon be the romantic target of the wealthiest suitors. Already drinking from his glass and fantasizing about negotiations, a gentleman adjusts his tie, also giving credit to his daughter's fame on the web and her fortunate popularity, claiming that young big shots do drool over his spoiled little girl, confirming the dating theories. Immediately, Vice President Kyun joins the gossip, pouring herself some good wine while flaunting her red dress, praising the luck and greatness the family will have by marrying a futuristic son-in-law willing to splash out tens of millions on surprise gifts. Seeing this whole fan-fic of the group deliriously indulging in blind self-praise for the necklace, he doesn't hide his look of disgust at the table, noting internally that they are people willing to believe in a blind and vain fairy tale of fictional web romances instead of seeing the truth and believing that he himself has the means to have given it to his wife. Standing up in a shock and addressing his boss, he ignores the other's rhetorical fight, asking directly if his ex was finally fed up and not to be embarrassed by hunger from now on in front of the region's courthouses. The young man turns calmly, dictating the end of the journey with the Wang, announcing with all pragmatism to go down to the courthouse at once to fill out the end of contract documents before it gets completely dark there. With a very crooked mouth, the wife recoils, her eyes widening with a look of confusion, as she saw she had heard the confusing syllables of the justifications under the table that mixed the end of paperwork with the matrimonial end of the gift. The confusion ends with his own arm raised and a snap, pointing straight at everyone's farce, dictating to the focused hall with a fixed gaze, with every word, toward that untouched sparkle on the old lady's tray. Revolted by the break in the romantic fan-fic, the preppy one points furiously, wanting to end Ye Chen's inventions, cursing him as a cheap, faceless liar, demanding proof of which sewer of a lie the trash there dares to claim such courage from. One of the guests tries to unmask him, asking him to put aside the shame and stop trying to deceive the rich men's dream bride, just to take credit on the birthday girl's back, when it's obvious it was the useless blonde girl's billionaire flirtation who sent it. Exhausted by the relatives brawling and heaping insults on the useless son-in-law over the wedding gift, the old lady tells him to just get on with leaving without trying to steal for himself an unreal glory that doesn't suit her at all before the civil registry. Approaching the old woman's face with his arms behind his back, unshaken and in a loud and clear voice, he formally ends the humiliation by donating all due respect to the dead master's wish, confirming before the old woman that it is only because of all this that from his own hand, that simple bracelet-shaped jewel is given to her to celebrate the happy age of the Wangs before his formal end of stay. Out of patience, the woman tells him to stop pretending and get lost, as his mere presence is a disgrace to the family. The lover steps forward, warning that after they sign the papers, the young man must take a train and disappear from Yunjo, never to be seen again. Turning his back, our MC retorts that the decision to stay or leave is entirely his, and no one there has the right to interfere with his freedom. With an ironic smile, the redhead scoffs, saying that someone like him doesn't even deserve to get into a luxury car and should take a shared bike to the place. Laughing, the preppy guy says that the two of them will be waiting for the loser at the entrance of the courthouse and gets into the car, accompanied by his lover. A short time later, our MC is already on his way, calmly sitting in the back of a yellow taxi. The courthouse facade displays the main room where the divorce paperwork finally begins to be processed. In the young man's hands now rest the two red certificates, confirming that the union has officially come to an end. Staring at the document, he sighs in relief, no longer needing to carry the burden of being a submissive son-in-law after 3 years of humiliation. He mentally plans that his next challenge will be to focus entirely on his business career when he is interrupted by the lover's taunts, who calls him abandoned trash. Without looking back, the young man keeps walking and tells them to say whatever they want, because from now on, he wants no further relationship with those people. Wife screams in frustration, calling the delivery guy useless as she watches him get into a taxi to leave. Already inside her own car, the woman orders her new boyfriend to follow the taxi to ensure her ex-husband really leaves the city. With a firm grip on the steering wheel, the rich guy guarantees that the loser is definitely going to catch a train to get away for good. The man deduces this because all of the young man's financial paths have been blocked, and without savings, he would end up starving if he decided to stick around. The woman agrees with the theory and comments that her ex-husband's cold expression made her suspicious that things wouldn't be so easy. The rich guy observes the route through the window and frowns, noticing that this road doesn't lead to the train station. The redhead asks if he's going to the airport, but the driver dismisses the idea, informing them that they are heading straight for the city's most affluent district. Keeping an eye on the yellow taxi just ahead, she wonders if, in the end, the delivery guy has no intention of leaving Yunzhou. The preppy guy trusts the Wang Fang family's connections and guarantees that even if the boy is looking for a hotel, he won't be able to rent even the cheapest ones. After a 10-minute chase, our MC's vehicle parks right in front of the luxurious entrance of the Four Seasons Hotel. Getting out of the car, the redhead's boyfriend curses the young man, trying to understand if he went to such a fancy place just to beg for a waiter position. Crossing her arms, the woman gets angry that he has the audacity to look for a job there, completely ignoring the boycott her family imposed. The man in the suit pulls out his phone, indignant at the young man's insolence, and says he'll make a quick call to block any hiring attempts. Over the phone, he instructs a hotel manager to immediately reject the application of a boy named Ye Chen, who just entered the lobby. The ex-wife soon notices the change in her boyfriend's expression and asks what went wrong with the call. Still confused, the rich guy explains that his contact just checked the system and confirmed that no one with that name has shown up to apply for a job, leaving a mystery in the air. Her eyes widening, the redhead raises the absurd hypothesis that her ex-husband might actually be staying in that expensive place. She herself dismisses the idea immediately after, remembering that a night there costs a fortune, and she made sure to confiscate all his cards during the divorce, leaving the young man with almost no cash in his pocket. Determined to get to the bottom of this, the preppy guy decides to enter the establishment to talk to the manager personally and find out the truth. Already in the spacious hotel lobby, the employee confirms to the couple that the mentioned individual has indeed just checked into the establishment. The rich guy is startled to hear from his contact that the food delivery guy paid in advance for a full 7 days' stay. Quickly doing the math, the woman deduces that this would amount to an immense sum and accuses her ex-husband of siphoning money from grocery shopping for years to hide this fortune. To make matters worse, a receptionist politely interjects, correcting that the guest did not take a standard room, but the presidential suite. The revelation hits the couple like a punch, leaving them both completely stunned and speechless before the employee. The redhead's boyfriend breaks into a cold sweat, remembering that the nightly rate for that room is 80,000, which results in an astronomical total for a week's stay. Turning to his girlfriend, he asks if she is absolutely sure that the young man could save so much money just by stealing from the household expenses. The man pressures the front desk employee, demanding to know if that human garbage really paid such an absurd amount right in front of her, and receives a positive answer. The attendant even adds to the story, saying that the generous guest even left her a hefty 10,000 tip. Trembling with rage, the redhead points a finger in the employee's face, yelling that the stolen money belongs entirely to the Wang family. The rich guy tries to calm the woman down, explaining that it's mathematically impossible for her ex-husband to have saved millions just by cutting corners on daily shopping over the past 3 years. A sudden memory hits the girl, recalling that the young man used to frequently visit her grandmother's house to take care of the dog, and the old woman owns a collection of valuable antiques. With the theft theory formed, the preppy guy tells her to quickly call her family and check if any important pieces have gone missing from the mansion recently. Meanwhile, the sun begins to set, reflecting off the glass of the imposing hall where the banquet took place earlier. At the event's entrance, frustrated guests gossip, noticing that the most important figures are already leaving without the mysterious jewel donor having shown up. Sitting at a reserved table, the vice president drums her fingers impatiently, not understanding the delay of the supposed lovesick billionaire. The beautiful woman in the red dress analyzes that even with the city's traffic, any big shot should have arrived at the location by now. An unusual thought crosses her mind, making her question if that valuable bracelet really wasn't a legitimate gift from the food delivery guy himself. The daydream is cut short when a rich relative's cell phone rings at the next table, wanting to know the details of how the process at the courthouse with the loser went. Over the phone, the redhead pleads at the top of her lungs for her mother to rush to her grandmother's house and look for missing works of art, accusing her ex-husband of stealing everything to sell. The mother repeats the accusation in shock, calling the young man a thief loud enough for the executive sitting nearby to perfectly overhear the gossip. Lighting a cigarette in relief, the vice president smiles mockingly, realizing she almost fooled herself into thinking the boy was someone powerful, when, in fact, he was just a petty crook. Rising elegantly from her chair, the powerful woman informs the hosts that company matters call, and she must leave the party immediately. Outside, the family escorts the woman out, thanking her for the guaranteed financial support, while other rich folks also say their goodbyes, frustrated by the no-show of the so-called tycoon. Several suit-clad guests start heading towards their cars, concluding that the mysterious big shot is really not going to show up to close the promised deals. Cuddling her dog, the matriarch furrows her brow, demanding to know why that worthless son-in-law would rob the family right after signing the divorce. The girl's mother reports the young man's exorbitant spending on the hotel's presidential suite, deducing that the only way he could afford it would be by selling stolen heirlooms from the house. The old woman loses control, letting out a cry of fury and calling the former family member an ungrateful animal for committing such an absurd betrayal. One of the aunts takes charge, directing part of the family to stay and wait for the tycoon, while sending the younger men to inspect the mansion for the damage. The scene cuts to the immense property surrounded by trees in the middle of the hills, where the old woman's official residence is located. As soon as they enter the empty house, one of the uncles suggests they split up to cover more ground and announces that he will personally search the art and calligraphy room. 20 minutes of intense searching later, the man stops in front of the glass shelves, confirming that all the vases and antique pieces are intact in their places. In the hallway, he meets his preppy nephew, and they both confirm they found nothing wrong, concluding that the grandmother didn't lose any valuable items after all. Holding a clipboard, the man breathes a sigh of relief, declaring that this proves our MC's innocence regarding the thefts on the property. The older uncle plays it cool, adjusting his glasses and suggesting they take one more look around the rooms just to be absolutely sure they didn't miss anything. With a wicked glint in his eye, he takes a very rare watch from the late grandfather, valued at millions, out of its box and flashes a cruel smile, planning to use the object to frame the delivery guy once and for all. With fake desperation, he runs down the hall holding the empty case, yelling that the precious jewel is missing from the master bedroom. Far away, the redhead's mother hears the news and exclaims that the mystery of the presidential suit money has finally been solved through the crime reported by her relative. The lying uncle continues his act on the phone, reporting in rich detail about the disappearance of the luxury watch. The old woman snatches the phone from her daughter's hand, demanding at the top of her lungs that they capture the thief and drag him back so she can cut off his hand herself. The uncle relays the grim order to his nephew, indicating that it is the matriarch's express wish to bring the criminal back to suffer the harsh punishment. Holding his still, sore face from the previous punches, the coward complains that his wounds haven't even healed and refuses to get beaten by that beast again. The older uncle makes up a flimsy excuse that he needs to go to the hospital for an urgent bandage and dumps the entire responsibility of fetching the ex-husband onto the coward. Alone and with no other option, the frustrated man calls the redhead to confirm if the target is still staying at the luxurious hotel so he can go after him. The late afternoon light illuminates the huge glass facade of the city hotel where the confusion and lies are about to collide. On the phone, the redhead receives false confirmation that a luxury watch valued at $5 million has disappeared from her grandmother's house. With a determined look, she tells her boyfriend that her ex-husband really did steal the jewel and promises to show him how she'll deal with it. Immediately, the couple heads to the reception desk, demanding that the employee provide the room number where the delivery guy is staying. The woman's eyes sparkle with excitement as she imagines the young man being arrested for the theft of the family's multi-million-dollar piece. Suspicious, the preppy guy notices his partner's exaggerated euphoria and questions why she's so excited to see her former husband. Trying to be cautious, the rich guy says he doesn't have the influence to cause a scene in a hotel of that level and suggests just calling the police. Annoyed by his cowardly attitude, the woman calls him a coward and decides to handle the situation herself. Without wasting time, she goes up to the presidential suite and starts pounding on the door, yelling for the thief to open up. The door opens slowly, revealing a confused MC, questioning why she's still chasing him right after they signed the divorce. To the ex-wife's surprise, the young man appears wearing only a towel around his waist, showing off a defined physique that leaves her speechless as he asks what she wants. Fascinated by the sight, She thinks to herself that she should have made him walk around shirtless at home before yellingly accusing him of stealing her grandmother's watch. Keeping his cool, the young master asks which watch she's talking about, receiving the direct accusation that he took the multi-million-dollar jewel. The redhead throws it in his face that this would be the only way for a piece of trash to get enough money to afford a luxurious presidential suite. With a tired sigh, the young man notes that the Wang family always tries to blame him for everything and denies the crime, formally calling the woman Mrs. Wang as he asks her to leave. The girl's heart races upon hearing that distant treatment, feeling the blow of no longer being called by her name with intimacy. A quick memory flashes through her mind, recalling the times when he treated her like a goddess and brought her flowers with a love-struck smile. Trying to hide her frustration, she crosses her arms and raises her voice, accusing her ex-husband of hiding some woman inside the room. With a look of contempt, our MC states that the woman has lost her mind, reminding her that since they are divorced, his personal life is none of her business and threatens to call security. Indignant at the rejection, the redhead claims she was going to give him a chance to confess the crime to her grandmother. But now she's going to report him to the authorities. Staring at the situation angrily, she threatens that a $5 million theft will result in a sentence of more than 15 years behind bars. Raising her voice, the woman demands that the young man kneel right there in the hallway and beg for mercy. Without the slightest patience for the drama, the young master simply closes the door in her face, reflecting on how she got used to seeing him submissive, just because he loved her in the past. Boiling with rage, the girl frantically types on her phone, confirming that she just called the police to send him straight to jail. The sun continues to shine on the modern facade of the building, where the tense atmosphere reaches its limit. Meanwhile, at the family mansion, the girl's mother informs the matriarch that the delivery guy refused to cooperate, forcing her daughter to involve the authorities. The younger woman complains that the matter should have been resolved internally, as the old lady planned to apply the family's justice with her own hands. Petting her little dog, the old woman sighs in frustration over this stain on their reputation but accepts that rotting in prison is also a just fate for her ex-son-in-law. 10 minutes later, the authorities arrive in the hotel lobby, approaching the redhead to confirm the details of the alleged multi-million-dollar theft. Spewing lies, the ex-wife confirms the accusation, claiming the loser sold the family heirloom to pay for the expensive suite and even hire women, demanding his immediate arrest. After hearing the report, the officer in charge orders a hotel employee to immediately summon the suspect for questioning. Lying comfortably on the huge bed of the suite, the young man tries to rest until he's interrupted by the insistent ringing of the room's phone. Holding her own cell phone in the lobby, the redhead smiles maliciously, deducing that his silence is a clear proof of guilt and fear. Given the lack of response, the police officer decides to go up to the suspect's floor personally to investigate the situation up close. The sound of the door opening reveals the young master wearing a white bathrobe as the officer confirms his identity. Introducing himself as the director of the local police station, the man explains the complaint made by the Wang family, and our MC calmly denies any involvement in the theft. The investigator questions the situation, remembering that the ex-wife guaranteed he left the marriage without a single cent in his pocket after years of working only in delivery. Suspicious, the officer asks where the money came from to afford a whole week in a suite that costs $80,000 a night if he didn't sell the stolen jewel. Asking for a moment of patience, the young man turns and calmly walks back into the luxurious room. On a wooden desk, he picks up some important documents he had set aside earlier. Returning to the door, he hands the paperwork to the director, revealing it to be the stock transfer agreement that makes him the largest shareholder and new CEO of the Huaxing Group. Along with the papers, he presents his business card, impressing the police officer who recognizes the Swiss-made diamond-studded material valued at 10,000 Ries per unit. One of the younger guards whispers in his boss's ear, suspecting that all this exaggerated display could be a huge fake. To clear up the doubt, the director asks if the young man's business data can be verified in the official corporate inquiry system. Explaining the situation, our MC reports that the system's creator is an old classmate and had hidden the data at his request to avoid attention before officially taking office. Picking up his phone, he makes a quick call to his friend, asking for the executive profile to be publicly released for 10 minutes for the authorities' verification. Just a minute later, the young master lowers his phone and announces that the director can now conduct the search in the corporate database. The officer types the name of the Huaxing Group into his phone's app, maintaining a serious investigative expression. The screen immediately displays our MC's photo, confirming his official position as the executive chairman of the Billionaire conglomerate. Even with the proof, the younger officer still hesitates, suggesting that a very skilled hacker could have manipulated the app's results. With a sigh, the young man confesses that he didn't intend to flaunt his true fortune, but given their stubbornness, he decides to end the doubts once and for all. He opens his own banking app on his phone and turns the screen directly toward the curious police officers' faces. The two officers' eyes widen in complete shock as they read the available balance in the account, which exceeds the 10 billion mark. Putting the device away, the rich man explains that this is just one of his accounts, pointing out that his ex-wife never bothered to check his true assets due to the prenuptial agreement. Casting a sharp look at the authorities, he questions if someone with billions in the bank would need to stoop to stealing a watch worth a mere 5 million. The director swallows hard, realizing he's in the presence of an heir to a colossal family, and wonders internally why someone like that would agree to live in humiliation at the Wang's house. Without going into detail, the young master simply says it was a family arrangement and earnestly asks the officers not to reveal his identity to his ex-wife. Sweating from the eccentricity of the rich, the police officer readily agrees, guaranteeing that the corporate secret will be kept in absolute confidence. The officers apologize for the inconvenience caused and bid a respectful farewell as the young man closes the room door. Returning to the lobby a few minutes later, the director informs the redhead that her ex-husband is innocent, advising her to look for the jewel elsewhere. The girl's eyes widen, not accepting the investigation's outcome, and she insists on knowing how the loser paid for the multi-million-dollar nightly rates if he didn't commit the crime. The police officer reaffirms that there is no evidence against the young man and thinks to himself about the irony of the girl calling a man with 10 billion in the bank poor. With a stern posture, the director warns the woman that without concrete evidence or footage of the robbery, the authorities cannot arrest an innocent citizen. Personally advising the civilian, the officer suggests she stop offending her former partner, but the redhead retorts that if he were a successful man, the divorce would never have happened. The police officer raises an eyebrow, asking if she was indeed the one who initiated the separation, and the girl confirms with pride, saying she has no regrets. Internally, the man feels pity for her ignorance, knowing that the one who will cry bitterly in the future for having rejected the billionaire chairman will be the girl herself. As the officers turn to leave, the ex-wife stops them with one last question, wanting to know if there was any woman hidden in his room. Pausing for a moment, the director looks over his shoulder and guarantees that the suspect was completely alone in the presidential suite. A smug smile appears on the redhead's face as she arrogantly deduces that his loneliness is proof that the young man is still head over heels in love with her. The preppy lover watches the police officers leave with a frown, not understanding why they came down with such a respectful attitude towards the trash. His train of thought is broken by the woman's ringing cell phone. She answers the call from her aggressive relative, who wants updates on her ex-husband's arrest. Frustrated, she tells him that the report failed miserably because the authorities demanded material evidence of the crime to make any arrest. On the other end of the line, the coward questions what that evidence would be and understands the police need recordings or sales receipts to incriminate the target. With a malicious smile, the man stares at the intact multi-million-dollar watch inside its case in his own hands, knowing that the robbery was nothing more than a farce created by him. Devising a dirty plan, the villain promises the woman that he will take control of the situation, suggesting he can easily forge a sales receipt in the delivery guy's name. Excited by the idea, the redhead flashes a cruel smile and hangs up the phone with the absolute certainty that she will finally be able to throw her ex-husband behind bars. Still on the phone, the redhead questions her relative about what will happen if he really manages to forge the evidence to send her ex-husband straight to prison. A fantasy flashes through the woman's mind, imagining that by getting rid of this problem, she will finally be free to enjoy a life of luxury, being served by handsome men. With a smile of pure satisfaction, she lowers her cell phone as her preppy lover approaches from behind in the hotel lobby. Pulling the woman by the shoulders, the rich guy mischievously suggests that they also spend the night there to enjoy the atmosphere. Annoyed, the girl shoves the guy's hands away, claiming he has no right to want to sleep with her since he can't even solve a simple problem like her ex-husband. With her arms crossed and a sour look on her face, she mutters that the delivery guy completely ruined the night's fun and promises not to let it slide. Despite being rejected, the rich guy observes his girlfriend's fury and thinks to himself how much he finds that aggressive attitude attractive. To try and impress her, the preppy guy adjusts his own collar and demands that she notify him immediately as soon as the target sets foot outside the hotel. The scene cuts to 6 a.m. the next day, revealing the imposing structure of the luxurious Four Seasons hotel illuminated by the morning sun. The elevator doors open, revealing our MC, now dressed in an impeccable suit, displaying a commanding posture, completely different from the delivery guy of yesterday. Hiding in the lobby, an informant quickly pulls out his cell phone to tell his boss that the useless ex-husband has just left through the main entrance. The spy watches from a distance as the young master gets into a yellow taxi, reporting over the phone that the vehicle is heading straight for the city center. 20 minutes pass until the car stops in front of the colossal, mirrored skyscraper that serves as the headquarters for the Huaxing Group. Our MC adjusts his jacket, reflecting with irony on what Vice President Kuhn will do when she faces him today after trying to cut off all his means of support yesterday. Far away, the raid head's lover answers the phone, still lying in bed, and questions his henchman about what exactly that loser was doing in such an important commercial building. The rich guy deduces that the young man would never go to the vice president's building seeking revenge and sees this as a great opportunity to try and get closer to the beautiful executive. Waking up still in her nightgown, the powerful woman with wavy hair answers the early morning call, asking who dares to bother her at this hour. With a gentle voice, the man introduces himself, reminding her of the toast they shared at the banquet, and tries to make small talk cordially. He quickly reports the boycott against the ex-husband from the previous day and warns the delivery guy has just broken into the conglomerate's headquarters, supposedly seeking retaliation. The executive dismisses the threat, guaranteeing that the building's strict security and locked turnstiles would prevent any unwanted access to the upper floors. Desperate to make himself useful, the preppy guy insists that his spy saw the young man using a magnetic card to get past the blockades, warning that her life could be in danger. The information catches the woman by surprise, making her jump out of bed immediately as she wonders how a loser like that would have a free pass to the corporation. The redhead's lover invents that the young man used the money from the multi-million-dollar watch theft to bribe someone from the inside and buy an access card without raising suspicion. To lay on all his cheap charm, the rich guy confesses to be very worried about the safety of such a stunning woman, fearing that the armed jerk could hurt her. In a serious tone of voice, the vice president thanks him for the warning and confirms that she will send a trusted employee to search the building right away. With a malicious smile, the man internally celebrates the success of his approach and announces that he is also on his way to the company to protect her personally. The executive quickly calls her assistant, ordering her to go to the executive floor to check for any suspicious activity and call the police if necessary. Half an hour passes as the morning advances over the imposing glass facade of the Huaxing Group. The lobby doors open, and the security guards formally greet Secretary Zhou, who has just arrived at work. In a tight pencil skirt and glasses, the beautiful assistant Rongrong passes through the electronic turnstile, ready to follow her superior's orders. Keeping an eye on the woman, the security guards whisper among themselves, complimenting the assistant's beauty and commenting that her friendliness easily beats the vice president's intimidating demeanor. At the entrance to the executive floor, the secretary throws open the door to the main office, demanding to know who the intruder is and how he managed to bypass the building's security. Sitting comfortably in the large leather chair, the young master lowers the documents he was reading and calmly returns the question, wanting to know the girl's identity. Full of pride, she formally introduces herself as Zhou Rongrong, the personal secretary and right-hand woman of Executive Kun Hongyan. The young man analyzes the employee's figure from top to bottom, finding it curious that a female boss would choose an assistant with attributes that usually appeal more to men. As he mentally questions whether the executive might have romantic interests in women, the assistant stomps her foot on the floor, demanding an immediate explanation for the office invasion. Unfazed, our MC reveals his true identity, informing the stunned girl that he is the newly arrived general president of the entire Huaxing Group. Immediately, the secretary turns red with embarrassment and bows, apologizing for her foolishness upon realizing that only the true owner would have the key to that office, highlighting the false alarm given by her boss. With an annoyed murmur, the young man deduces that his ex-wife's nosy relatives are still tracking his movements and dismisses the employee from the room with a simple wave of his hand. Before she leaves, he asks that as soon as the vice president, famous for being the most beautiful woman in the city, arrives, she be sent straight to his office because he wants to test that beauty personally. Locked in the women's restroom on the floor, the assistant hastily makes an urgent call to report the situation to her superior. Behind the wheel of her sports car, the executive answers the call and receives the shocking news that the so-called intruder is actually the company's mysterious new president, demanding her presence. Startled, the beauty slams on the brakes, her eyes widening in disbelief at the tycoon's sudden visit, and promises to get to the building as quickly as possible. The luxurious red car takes off again, cutting through the wide city avenues at high speed. 10 minutes later, the vice president bursts through the doors of the main lobby, completely out of breath and running to meet her assistant. As soon as she crosses the lobby, the hurried executive is greeted by her personal assistant, who is waiting for her anxiously. The secretary points towards the elevators, explaining that the big boss is already settled in the executive office, awaiting her immediate arrival. During the walk through the corridors, the vice president furrows her brows, noticing a group of receptionists huddled together and gossiping at a time when the building is usually empty. The assistant explains with a smile that the news about the new CEO has spread through the group chat, and all the female employees rushed to work early just because they heard he's gorgeous. With a smirk, the experienced executive scoffs at the girl's excitement and questions how handsome this mysterious man could really be. Enchanted, the secretary guarantees that the man surpasses any movie star and looks to be 23 years old at most. The number catches the older woman by surprise, as she herself considers it a great achievement to have reached the vice presidency at 32, making it almost unreal for him to lead everything so young. Reverting to her stern boss persona, she reprimands the girls, telling them all to act professionally to prevent the young boss from getting a terrible first impression of the female employees. One of the receptionists retorts the lecture, guaranteeing that none of them would stand a chance with him, as only a powerful and stunning leader like Mrs. Kuhn would be worthy of the tycoon. In the midst of the banter, the group teases the executive, revealing that the boss praised her as the #1 beauty in the city, raising the theory that he showed up early just to meet her. Striding confidently down the hallway, the powerful woman mentally boasts about her long experience in the business world, certain that she can wrap any man around her finger, including a 23-year-old boy. The executive's intimidating presence and beauty leave her subordinates completely dazzled as they watch her walk full of self-assurance. A memory crosses her mind, recalling the day an influential billionaire couldn't resist her charms for even 2 minutes, ending up on his knees on the floor just to put on her shoes. As she provocatively reapplies her red lipstick, she arrogantly reflects on the absurd number of powerful men who have fallen at her feet throughout her career. Standing right in front of the executive office door, she boldly promises to leave a crack open for the female employees to learn how to tame an inexperienced brat. The subordinates celebrate the boss's audacity, begging her to make the new CEO kneel and put on her shoes to reenact the epic and humiliating scene of submission. A smug smile dominates the vice president's face as she plans to use this demonstration of power to prove to everyone in the corporation that she is the one who really calls the shots, solidifying her status unshakably. With both hands, she pushes open the heavy wooden door and enters the luxurious office, prepared to put her plan of seduction and control into practice. Maintaining a firm and professional posture, she officially introduces herself as the corporation's vice president while facing the boss's turned chair. The young master continues to read his papers without moving, showing only the profile of his face and a jawline that makes him look like a true movie star. The woman admires his beauty from a distance and feels a strange sense of familiarity with that silhouette as she confirms aloud that she has come there at his call. Through the small gap left in the door, the female employees peek, eagerly watching and betting among themselves that the young man will get a nosebleed and bow, calling the executive a queen the moment he turns around. Slowly, the chair spins, revealing the president's identity, causing the executive's world to collapse in an instant shock as she recognizes that the mysterious tycoon is actually the food delivery guy she humiliated. The curious onlookers outside widen their eyes in complete shock and confusion as they witness the bizarre twist that just happened inside the room. The distant view reveals that instead of the young man bowing to the executive's charms, it was the arrogant vice president herself who collapsed to her knees on the rug in front of the desk. Shocked, the personal secretary is perplexed, not understanding how her domineering boss ended up completely losing her strength and falling to her knees for a younger man. RMC glares down at her with a cold, cutting look, showing not a shred of compassion for the woman crumpled at his feet. Pressured by that frightening atmosphere, the gossipers decide it's better to flee and run desperately down the hall to avoid being caught in the mess. Leaving his chair, the young man asks with pure irony why she's making such a grand bow at their first official meeting, while the humiliated woman mutters for him to help her up instead of letting her be so embarrassed. Completely red and sweating, the executive internally curses the redhead's family for making her offend her own superior and clasps her hands, desperately begging for forgiveness for all the atrocities she said at the party. The young master leans over the executive with a cold smile and recalls the absurd lie she told at the banquet, claiming they were passionate lovers. Pressed against the floor, the beauty lets out a faint moan of surprise, feeling the sudden proximity of the new boss's face. With his face inches from hers, the young man ironically notes her perfume and softness, understanding why so many rich men lose their minds over her. He continues the provocation, questioning in a mocking tone what the name of that paradise island was that he had supposedly rented to ask her to be his girlfriend. Completely ashamed, the vice president lowers her head, admitting her mistake, while our MC steps back, telling her to get up so they can talk properly. Back in his authoritative posture, he orders the woman to close the office blinds, as the sight of the executive kneeling like that wouldn't look good to the other employees. The tycoon takes his seat in the leather chair, reminding his assistant of the cruel promise she made to cut off all his means of survival in the city. Leafing through a document, the young master directly questions how she plans to blacklist him now that he is the owner of the entire corporation. The beautiful woman recognizes the gravity of the situation, admitting that she never would have imagined a humiliated son-in-law would assume such a high position, and says she is ready to accept any punishment. In a tone of total submission, she guarantees that she will accept being slapped, humiliated, or even fired, offering to pack her things and disappear from his sight forever. Observing his subordinate's posture, the young man mentally concludes that Kyun Hongyan is a cold professional who doesn't run from her responsibilities or try to make up flimsy excuses. To the executive's relief, he calmly informs her that he has no intention of firing her from her position. Our MC explains his decision, remembering that amidst all the cruel rich people at the banquet, she was the only person who tried to offer him a way out. He points out that if he were just a common delivery guy, that job offer as a bodyguard would have made her his great benefactor. Full of gratitude, the woman promises to serve him with all her loyalty from this day forward, while the young man guarantees he will not have the same mercy for the rest of his enemies from the party. Shifting focus to business, President Yi orders his subordinate to immediately gather a complete dossier on everyone who tried to ruin him the day before. The vice president agrees to the order, realizing that the new boss is about to make his first big move and that Yunzhou's business world will suffer a major shake up. Half an hour passes until a document with the preppy Fang Chao's photo is placed on the executive desk with all the requested information. The redhead appears in the young man's thoughts as he reads the data, questioning how she had the nerve to trade someone like him for a loser from that family. The young master comments that he heard rumors about the Fang family having nearly 10 billion in assets and being considered first class in the region. The executive promptly corrects the information, explaining that this value was real 2 years ago, but their assets have shrunk drastically and are now barely a 3 billion. The woman details that the Wangs are desperate for a $70 million loan and have therefore offered various commercial benefits in an attempt to close a partnership. With a calculating look, the young man decrees that business negotiations are separate matters and he does not intend to boycott the deal just because of personal disagreements with the Wangs. He then asks his subordinate to bring the project proposal so he can analyze the details, and she offers to get the paperwork immediately. Far away, in the main lobby of the gigantic building, the preppy Fang walks confidently with his phone in hand, looking for his girlfriend's ex-husband. Rich Guy's plan is interrupted when a young female employee with short hair recognizes him and calls his name with some familiarity. The girl tries to jog the young man's memory, reminding him of a night he bought her drinks at a bar, and the two ended up spending the entire night together. The villain hides his discomfort, mentally remembering that he was too drunk that day and ended up involved with a woman he considers disposable. Noticing the corporation's badge around her neck, the man sees a golden opportunity and feigns interest, hugging the employee affectionately. Manipulating the knave girl, he invents that Vice President Kyun is in terrible danger and begs to be taken quickly to the executive floor. The manipulation plan works perfectly, and soon the rich guy is walking through the corridors of the executive floor, guided by the employee. The gossipers on the floor approach and recount, impressed, the absurd scene they witnessed of the feared boss kneeling on the rug in the first second of the meeting. Arriving at the executive office door, the preppy guy ignores the secretary's warnings and aggressively advances, wanting to barge into the room. With no respect whatsoever, the villain throws open the double wooden doors with a violent push, interrupting the meeting that was happening inside. Pointing his finger arrogantly, he finds the delivery guy standing next to the vice president and calls him an abandoned thief, stating that he knew he would be there. The executive becomes furious with the intrusion and reprimands the young man, wanting to know who gave him permission to invade her office. Posing as a hero, the coward ignores the scolding and promises to sweep that human trash out of the room to protect the beautiful woman's eyes. The response comes quickly and harshly as the executive lands a resounding slap with all her force right across the nosy rich guy's face. Holding his red cheek, the man is completely disoriented, not understanding the aggression, as he notices that the woman doesn't seem the least bit scared by the ex-delivery guy's presence. RMC crosses his arms, deducing the bizarre line of reasoning the intruder has created, and just watches the confusion unfold. The preppy guy's mind connects the hallway gossip with the current scene, and he mistakenly concludes that the delivery guy showed up to beg for the bodyguard job, and it was he who knelt. Laughing at his own invention, he scoffs at the young man for wearing a cheap suit just to humiliate himself and act like the vice president's submissive dog. Indignant, he turns to the executive, reminding her that she had promised at the banquet to help destroy the delivery guy's life, not hire him. The personal secretary watches the scene, shocked by the intruder's audacity in confronting her boss over a rumor about a boycott. Desperate not to infuriate the real boss beside her, the woman denies the accusations at the top of her lungs and lands another blow on the rich guy, telling him to shut up. Without wasting time, the vice president orders her secretary to immediately expel the intruder and fire the employee who facilitated his entry on the spot. The humiliation is complete as the security guards drag the self-proclaimed young master of the Fang family out of the building under everyone's gaze. Being thrown onto the street, the coward points a finger, threatening our MC and swearing that the bodyguard position won't save him from rotting in jail soon. Already inside his car, the villain punches the steering wheel, fuming with rage for being assaulted, and promises to destroy both the executive's reputation and the ex-delivery guy's life. Starting the vehicle, he decides to drive straight to the Wong family mansion to spread the gossip that the loser got the security job at the corporation. An hour passes, and the tranquility of the luxurious Wong villa is shattered by the shocking news brought by the rich guy. In the living room, the old matriarch listens in disbelief to the report that the trash they kicked out now works as the powerful woman's personal security and carries her documents. The redhead refuses to believe the story, questioning how a high-level executive would accept such a useless person on her team. The preppy guy reinforces his lie, guaranteeing he heard from the employees themselves that the young man knelt and begged for the woman's forgiveness to get the job. The girl's uncle agrees with the twisted logic, deducing that the executive must have found the delivery guy attractive at the banquet and surrendered to his charms. Treed takes over the ex-wife, who clenches her fists, indignant that her ex-husband knelt to please a stranger. The girl's bruised ego speaks louder as she recalls the time she demanded he kneel and beg for forgiveness to avoid being reported to the police, only to be rejected. The girl's mother tries to calm her down, noticing her daughter's loss of control at the ex-husband's submission to someone else. Trying to console the redhead, the mother states that if the young man were her husband, she would make him kneel to wash her feet every day from the very first minute of the marriage. Completely blinded by her own narcissism, the girl concludes that she was too nice during their 3 years of union and promises that if she gets another chance, she will make him live on his knees all day. Banging her cane on the floor, the matriarch demands severe retaliation against the vice president, accusing her of breaking the boycott promise made at the banquet. The redhead's uncle interrupts the commotion and tells her mother to stop talking nonsense, warning about the executive's position of power. The old woman refuses to listen to arguments, remembering that the precious $70 million loan depends entirely on her corporation, and therefore, they cannot act as enemies. Trying to smooth things over, the uncle reminds his niece that the vice president has much more influence in the city, and they need to swallow their pride for the moment. Pouting, the girl crosses her arms and threatens to go to the building personally to confront the woman, but is reprimanded by her relative, who tells her to stay put. Determined to resolve the situation her own way, the matriarch orders them to call the executive, as she wants to speak with her directly. On the phone, the old woman uses a falsely friendly tone, commenting on the hiring of the useless son-in-law and suggesting that if she had known of her interest, she would have given the young man as a gift much earlier. The old woman then politely demands an explanation, reminding her that the day before, the woman had promised to support the family and destroy the delivery guy's livelihood. On the other end of the line, the vice president swallows hard, holding the phone while looking at her real boss, aware that if the old woman found out the truth, she would die of shock on the spot. The executive offers a vague apology for the change of plans, while the matriarch laughs, thinking the woman is just embarrassed for having accepted the Wong's useless gift. The old woman dismisses the son-in-law issue, focusing on what really matters, and demands a guarantee that the multi-million-dollar financing will not be affected. Choosing her words very carefully, the subordinate informs her that she has already submitted the project to President Yi, and that he really liked the ideas presented. Excited by the news, the old woman promises to send her son personally to discuss the terms with the great president, setting up a formal meeting. After hanging up, the matriarch gives instructions to her son, telling him to ensure that the corporation's mysterious boss is completely satisfied with the partnership. With a confident smile, the son guarantees the mission's success, while questioning if they should ignore the alleged watch theft now that the young man works for such a powerful woman. With a merciless expression, the old matriarch orders them to continue investigating to find the proof that will help her execute the family's justice and send the trash to prison. At that moment, the preppy uncle reveals he has already found the evidence, claiming the young man stole from gang members, while the grandmother instructs them hand to hand everything over to Kyun Hongyan. Maintaining her rigid posture, the old woman guarantees that even if they take revenge, the executive will do nothing about it, considering the ex-delivery guy just a dog. The group of relatives agrees, gossiping about the fact that Jikyong is helping discuss the company's contract while Shaji has already secured proof of the alleged theft. Distant from the conversation, the redhead bites her lip in frustration, feeling that her ex-husband's handsome face has been completely wasted. Without giving an explanation, the girl hurries out, ignoring her own mother who yells after her, asking where she's going. Driving her luxury car at high speed, the ex-wife swears to teach the jerk a good lesson for making her lose so much credibility in front of her family. The dark vehicle brakes sharply upon arriving at the underground parking garage of the imposing Huashing group. Looking through the car window, the woman's eyes are fixed on the figures of Yi Chen and Kyun Hongyan walking together through the place. Completely shocked, she notices how her useless ex-husband is dressed so elegantly right after the divorce, walking beside the smiling beauty. Getting out of the car, the redhead points a finger, accusing the young man of being shameless for having truly become the executive's pet dog. Our MC turns his head in surprise, questioning why the arrogant eldest daughter of the Wang family showed up there of all places. Consumed by jealousy, she accuses her ex-husband of having knelt and begged for the other woman's forgiveness, demanding to know why he didn't do the same for her. Beating her chest, the girl throws it in his face that she gave him several chances to bow and beg, guaranteeing that he would still be the family's son-in-law. With a look of pure boredom, the young master questions if she really has the audacity to ask the reason for his refusal, finding her entire demand a huge exaggeration. Taking a deep breath, our MC remembers that the day before, she rented a room with the Fang hair to cheat on him, and yet she expected him to kneel and beg for forgiveness. The redhead crosses her arms, guaranteeing that if he had bowed, she herself would have convinced her grandmother to cancel the divorce to keep him as her husband. Pointing her finger, she adds that at the hotel, she also would have avoided calling the police if he had begged, and she doesn't understand why he accepts crawling for the executive but not for her. Maintaining his calm, the young man explains that kneeling for one's own wife is not shameful, but surrendering to an unfaithful woman is unacceptable, lamenting that he spoiled her too much in the past. Furious with the response, the girl blames her ex-husband for the situation, stating that her relatives criticize her precisely because he spoiled her with so much pampering. With a cutting look, Ye Chen confesses that if he had known her true character before, he would have forced her to kneel and wash his feet every day. Blind with rage, the ex-wife raises her hand, lunging forward to slap the young man's face. In a swift move, Vice President Kyun grabs the aggressor's wrist, reprimanding her for her shamelessness in cheating and still thinking she has the right to act that way. Struggling to break free, the girl asks if the executive dares to hit her, receiving a cold warning that no special day is needed to teach a lesson. With tears in her eyes, the redhead accuses the older woman of stealing her man and still wanting to assault her, only to be forcefully pushed away. Our MC places a hand on his subordinate's shoulder, calmly asking her to forget the matter and not get worked up. Turning his head, he tells his ex-wife to leave, decreeing that from that moment on, he is no longer her man. Refusing the rejection, the girl screams that not even a dog raised for 3 years should be given to someone else, ordering him to quit and offering a salary of 500,000. The executive can't contain her laughter, finding the redhead's desperate attempt to buy the young man for such a low price hilarious. With an ironic smile, the beauty scoffs at the girl's naivety, guaranteeing that even if she added another zero to that offer, it still wouldn't be enough. Intrigued, the ex-wife wonders if the crazy executive is really paying the bodyguard 5 million and tells the young man to wait before leaving. Grabbing his arm, the redhead threatens him, warning that her cousin has already found proof of the watch's sale and that a prison sentence is certain. Trying to manipulate the situation, she proposes that if he abandons Kyun Hongyan and becomes her personal bodyguard, she will convince the family to drop the charges. Our MC calmly frees himself, thanking her for the fake kindness and assuring her he's not capable of taking on the role of her protector. With a look of contempt, he finishes by saying it would be impossible to ensure the woman's safety while watching her rent hotel rooms with other men. Already settled in the driver's seat, the young master tells his ex-wife to inform her cousin to sue him all he wants if he really has any proof. The luxury car speeds out of the parking garage, leaving the girl behind, screaming desperately that he's not allowed to leave. In the passenger seat, the vice president jokes, insinuating that the 5 million could include lover services, noting the redhead's complete lack of shame. Alone in the garage, the ex-wife clenches her fists, indignant, trying to understand in what aspect she could be considered inferior to the powerful Chun Hongyin. The scene changes, showing the chaotic streets of Yeonjo's famous outlying district, known for housing both poor people and major underworld bosses. In this violent place, the rule is clear. The one who truly calls the shots is the feared Brother Gua, a tattooed man who settles everything with a knife or by collecting heads. With his face covered in bandages, the preppy guy from the Wong family enters a dimly lit room, greeting the local crime boss. Sitting on the sofa shirtless and showing off his tattoos, the criminal welcomes the visitor, apologizing for not having greeted him at the door. Getting straight to the point, the coward opens a velvet box, revealing a multi-million-dollar watch, and says he came there exclusively to close a deal. He displays the luxurious piece valued at over $5 million and proposes to sell it all to the mobster for a special price of $4.5 million. The criminal examines the jewel, while the preppy rich guy lays down the rules, demanding that the sale be registered in Yi Chen's name, not his. With a sly smile, the tattooed man quickly deduces that it was this Yi Chen who left the visitor's face completely bruised. The man confirms the suspicion, explaining that he needs to send his family's ex-son-in-law to prison to swallow his own anger without exposing the Wongs. Leaning back on the sofa, the underworld leader refuses the deal, warning he doesn't get involved in family feuds because relatives usually reconcile, and he ends up taking the blame. Desperate, the preppy guy guarantees that reconciliation is impossible due to the divorce and questions why the gangster has to answer to some key Master Liu. Losing his patience, the visitor stumps his foot, aggressively reminding him that this mysterious master is the real boss of the entire operation there. Unfazed, the criminal agrees that his superior is his guide, but decrees that his words are law and tells the pretty boy to find someone else to do his dirty work. Clenching his teeth, the coward lowers the offer, begging to sell the rare piece for just $4 million. The mobster slowly gets up, grabbing a bottle, and reinforces that he treats his boss like a father and cannot disobey any of his orders. Sweating, the rich guy drops the price to $3 million, throwing it in the gangster's face, the easy $2 million profit he would make just by reselling the jewel. With his eyes gleaming with greed, the big guy changes his mind, remembering that the only real rule of the underworld is to never go against money, and accepts the dirty job. Far from that chaos, our MC drives calmly through the city, telling the vice president that she is forbidden from hitting his ex-wife again without permission. The executive's eyes widen in surprise at the order, asking if the boss still feels any kind of heart-touch for the woman who treated him so badly. Keeping his focus on the road, the young master philosophizes that love and hate are two sides of the same coin, and that despising that girl doesn't make her any different than before. Observing the boss's profile, the beauty smiles internally, admiring his transcendent mentality and confirming that heirs of great families cannot be underestimated. The executive remains lost in thought, praising the young man's beauty and wealth, marveling at the grand and affectionate way he sees women. With a determined smile, the woman decides that since the ex-wife was foolish enough not to value him, she herself will make sure to win this man's heart. The luxury car parks in front of the imposing architecture of the Golden Pavilion Temple, where our MC comments on the Wong family's real estate plans. Walking side by side, the vice president confirms that the area has the most beautiful gardens in the city, as well as maple forests and natural hot springs. The young master acknowledges the quality of the land, but looks at his subordinate, questioning if she really intends to release the multi-million-dollar financing for the Wongs. Surprising her boss, the woman in the pink dress confesses that the real estate project for first-class families was actually her original idea. The young man deduces that his ex-wife's relatives stole the proposal, since the current heirs are all useless, focused only on fighting over the small inheritances left by their grandfather. Agreeing with the analysis, the executive explains that she created the concept to help the Wongs control other rich families without needing to improve their own strength. She details that she shared the idea in good faith with the redhead and that the old matriarch loved the concept but ended up giving the project's leadership to Uncle Jiqing. With a tone of pity, the beauty admits to sympathizing with the boss's ex-wife, as the family only values men and believes that women have no right to be in business. Our MC lowers his gaze, recognizing that the girl has always suffered a lot of pressure and contempt from her own parents, and that this was the real reason they arranged her marriage to a useless son-in-law. The young man's expression hardens again as the leaves fall, decreeing that even with all this suffering, nothing justifies the betrayal she committed. Delicately, the vice president reaches out to catch an autumn leaf that was falling near her face. With a deep and inviting look, the beautiful executive smiles at the young master, asking him to join her for a drink. Accepting the invitation, the president agrees, and the two continue walking through the tree-lined streets towards one of the region's charming bars. In a bar lit by neon lights, the vice president invites our MC for a drink, while in the background, the redhead vents her sorrows to her friend. The friend questions who had the audacity to intimidate her in broad daylight and promises to teach the culprit a lesson immediately. Furious, the ex-wife reveals that was the wretched Kim Hongyan who slapped her, claiming she was just scolding her own disappointing husband. Confused, the friend tries to understand the situation, asking what the useless delivery guy means to the powerful executive, as the redhead bursts into tears. With a sly smile, the short-haired woman uses the expression that you have to look at the owner before you hit the dog, concluding that the vice president would obviously defend her new lackey. The girl in the white dress tries to downplay her own cheating, arguing that she only strayed once and cynically questions what beautiful woman wouldn't do the same these days. Caught off guard, the friend even spits out her drink in shock and immediately corrects her, reminding her that she actually cheated on her husband twice. To justify the unjustifiable, the redhead argues that she wasn't even caught in the act by her husband and judges that a simple live-in son-in-law should have just put up with the situation quietly. Changing the subject, the woman in red asks if she knows why the young man refused to kneel, and the redhead complains indignantly he preferred to bow to the executive for money, when she could have paid too. The friend points out that from what she understands of the ex-husband's profile, he loved her deeply for 3 whole years, and that kind of feeling wouldn't change overnight. The theory raised is that the young man rejected the money and chose to be the executive's bodyguard precisely to force the redhead to look up to him with admiration. She explains that if the young man accepted the Wong family's money, he would continue to feel like a freeloader, but by earning it from outside, he could rise up and try to prove his worth to propose marriage again. The ex-wife's eyes light up with excitement upon hearing this twisted logic, fully agreeing with her friend. With a smug smile, the girl holds her glass and states with absolute certainty that deep down, that useless guy is still completely in love with her. When asked about her romance with Fang Chao, the redhead dismisses him as a playboy incapable of taking care of anyone, guaranteeing that if all else fails, her honest ex-husband will serve perfectly as her backup plan. Her face flushed from the alcohol, the redhead mutters that the young man is being very mean, but deep down, he deserves the suffering for having made her unhappy. Drink in hand, the friend raises a genuine question about why a man who was always a homemaker suddenly started delivering food in the last 6 months. Almost passed out on the table, the ex-wife remembers that at the time, the entire family had traveled to Switzerland, and the young man got sick, having to work on his own since he couldn't contact them. The sound of a ringing cell phone interrupts the drunken moment, and the friend alerts her to the call, making the girl groggily answer the phone. The scene cuts to the next morning, revealing the illuminated lobby of the Huaxing Group, where employees greet President Yi with respect. Our MC walks with firm steps through the building while watching his cell phone screen vibrate with a call from the preppy Wang Xiaoji. Without showing any emotion, he answers the call and listens as his ex-cousin-in-law demands his immediate presence at the grandmother's house, claiming to already have the proof of the stolen watch's sale. The young master refuses the invitation, saying he's very busy, but the coward provokes him, asking if he's afraid to face the watch's buyer, who is already there. Getting straight to the point, the young man reaffirms that he never sold any watch and questions where they got this false witness, deciding to go there just to end this farce once and for all. The phone is hung up, and the president turns his head to Secretary Zhou, casually asking if the employee knows how to drive. With a surprised expression, the beautiful assistant with glasses promptly agrees to the boss's request, who orders to be taken immediately to the Shishin mansion. The imposing black sedan takes off through the city streets, cutting through the wind toward the luxurious property of the Wang family. Sitting comfortably in the back seat, our MC reflects on the irony of returning to that mansion, no longer as a submissive son-in-law, but as the powerful president of a billionaire empire. 30 minutes later, the luxury vehicle parks silently in front of the large iron gates of the enemy property. The driver's door opens, and the secretary gets out of the car, displaying her professional posture as she prepares to accompany her boss. Outside the mansion, the gossiping aunts watch the car arrive and wonder why the executive's trusted secretary is there, acting as a driver. With all her elegance, the employee opens the sedan's rear door, revealing the imposing figure of the young master. Our MC gets out of the vehicle, adjusting his suit, and calmly orders the secretary to wait for him right there. Wife watches the scene, completely perplexed, not understanding how a loser managed to get a high-level assistant to work as his private driver. The preppy guy bursts out laughing, inventing the theory that the young man is just a fraud, putting on a cheap act to try and humiliate the rich family and fake a comeback. The older relatives agree with the mockery, laughing at the ex-son-in-law's supposed pathetic attempt to impress them. Pointing his finger, the coward accuses the delivery guy of trying to pose as a great businessman and scoffs, wanting to know how much he had paid to pay for the secretary to open the door like that. The young master glares at the group with disdain, stating that there's no need for pretense, and uses an old proverb, saying that you can't get ivory from a dog's mouth, to define the Wong siblings. The slight smile on the young man's face makes the redhead blush and create illusions in her own head, completely distorting his intentions. Blinded by vanity, she concludes that her friend from the bar was absolutely right and that this whole power play is just a desperate proof of love to try and win her back. Out of patience for more speeches, the preppy guy tells the young man to shut up and get inside the house, while our MC rolls his eyes at such stupidity. The large wooden doors are opened, revealing the luxurious interior of the mansion, which is now occupied by goons with clubs. The young master's sharp gaze scans the room, finding the presence of that group of ruffians inside a high-class property strange. The tattooed underworld leader approaches with a cynical smile, greeting our MC as if they were old acquaintances reuniting. With his hands in his pockets, the president coldly asks when the two have ever crossed paths, and the mobster invents that it was just a few days ago when he bought the watch for $5 million. The preppy guy joins the conversation, guaranteeing that any teenager in the city knows the notorious Brother Gua and accuses his ex-brother-in-law of faking amnesia to escape the blame. Unintimidated, our MC questions if that cheap thug is the so-called witness and accuses his own relative of having stolen the jewel to frame him. The old matriarch enters the room, supported by her daughter, and points a furious finger, accusing the trash of stealing from his own family and still having the audacity to argue. The young master maintains his unshakable posture, reaffirming that he went there exclusively to clarify the facts and that he never laid a finger on their watch. The old woman displays the velvet box with the luxurious accessory inside, proving it to be an unmistakable limited edition, and questions how the piece ended up in the gang's hands. With a dirty smile, the mobster points at the young man, lying shamelessly that he sold the jewel, claiming he would use the money to pay for a week in the presidential suite. Our MC finds the flaw in the lie immediately, questioning that if he hadn't received the payment beforehand, how did he manage to book the most expensive room, proving that they colluded on the story. After a long sigh, the president laments that he tried to resolve the situation peacefully and like a normal person, but received only cynicism and false accusations. In a grand gesture, the young master decides to lay all his cards on the table and declares loud and clear to the entire room that he is the real president of the Huaxing Group. With a dominant gaze, he reveals he is a billionaire, questioning if that absurd fortune isn't more than enough reason to afford a simple hotel stay without needing to steal. A brief silence fills the hall before all the relatives of the Wong family burst into hysterical, uncontrolled laughter. Tears of laughter, the coward scoffs, asking if the young man has been reading cheap fiction novels, thinking that real life works that way. One of the aunts laughs hysterically, promising that if he really is the great president, she would agree to be his second wife to serve him alongside her sister, leaving the redhead indignant. The mobster places a heavy hand on our MC's shoulder, telling him to stop the act and advising him to kneel before the matriarch to avoid jail. The ex-wife approaches, posing as the good guy, and guarantees that out of respect for their 3 years of marriage, she will convince the family not to send him to prison if he cooperates. The girl continues her arrogant speech, warning that the money spent on the suit can be paid back gradually, but he must kneel and admit his mistake to be able to leave. With a cold look, our MC reaffirms his innocence and decrees that even if he were wrong, the entire family would not be worthy of making him bend his knee. The old woman's patience runs out, and she calls the young man a scumbag, ordering them to call the police immediately to lock him up for 10 years. A drop of sweat runs down the crime leader's face as he realizes that the presence of the authorities would completely ruin the farce they had set up. In a quick action, the mobster intervenes, suggesting that a physical punishment would be enough to wash away the old woman's honor, and orders his goons to force the young man to his knees. The huge thugs surround the young master from all sides, ordering him to obey, while the young man remains completely impassive in the face of the threat. In a calm movement, the president adjusts his collar and repeats once more that none of them there are worthy of witnessing his submission. In a flash, the violence erupts and our MC lands a quick, brutal blow to the stomach of the first attacker, who screams in pain. Agilely, the young man delivers a devastating punch directly to the face of the second goon, sending him flying backward from the impact. The gang leader's eyes widen, astonished by the martial arts skills of this supposedly weak target, and he yells for everyone to attack at the same time. In the midst of the confusion, the shrill barks of a small white poodle echo through the hall, distracting one of the thugs, who is thrown far away while trying to figure out where the animal came from. The little dog runs, wagging its tail, and stops right at our MC's feet, who cracks a small smile upon recognizing the family's pet. With the little dog in his arms, the young man jokes, calling it a snob for having barked the day before, but acknowledges that he was the one who took care of the pet for years, feeling that the animal was worried about him. As he strokes the animal's fur, the young master casts a cutting look at the relatives, stating that even a dog knows how to recognize who treats it well, proving to be superior to those despicable people. Trembling with pure rage at the scene, the matriarch screams at her daughter, ordering her to go there and retrieve her beloved little dog from the trash's hands immediately. Holding the small dog in his arms, the young master gives the family one last chance to kneel and admit their mistake to avoid physical pain. The matriarch and the relatives are paralyzed with anger as the young man glares at them mercilessly. With a stern expression, our MC throws his jacket back, repeating that those people are simply not worthy of his respect. Bellowing in fury, the underworld goons charge at the target with everything they've got. The truth is, 4 years ago, the family sent the heir to a brutal survival test on the battlefields of Syria even before the arranged marriage. Dodging the blows with extreme ease, the president lands devastating punches, proving that those thugs are nothing but amateurs. For someone who constantly survived amidst blood and corpses, facing a few street brawlers is basically child's play. Standing in the middle of the hall, the young man watches the big guys lying on the floor, groaning in pain. Refusing defeat, 2 goons try to grab him from behind in a surprise attack. The mob leader orders them to hold the young man firmly, planning to cut the tendons in his hands as punishment. Clenching his fists, the criminal threatens to cripple the young master for having hurt his trusted men. Without giving the threat time to materialize, the ex-delivery guy unleashes an absurd force, throwing the attackers far away with a single impact. Cries of despair echo through the mansion as the thugs fly through the air, completely defeated. Watching the terrifying scene, the women of the Wang family panic, not understanding how a single person can have such terrifying combat power. Trembling in shock, the old woman wonders if her late husband already knew about the young man's frightening skills when he forced her granddaughter to marry him. Blinded by her own ego, the ex-wife deduces that her grandfather forced her to marry the young man just so he could protect her like a guard dog. Uncle Jikyung laughs at the situation, revealing that he actually refused to accept that union at the time because he thought the son-in-law was just a penniless country bumpkin. Shocked, the redhead questions her father about the true story of the arranged marriage imposed by the old master. The man in the suit reveals that the patriarch's original intention was to marry the young master to Yuanyuan, the younger sister, and that the redhead was only chosen because the other was still too young. With a wicked laugh, the cousin in the red outfit scoffs at the situation, realizing that the redhead ended up with the trash that she herself didn't want. Full of herself, the girl celebrates her own luck in escaping that disaster, praising her late grandfather's ignorance for thinking that such a violent man would be good for anything. Surprised by the revelation, our MC lowers his head, lamenting internally that he didn't expect to hear such a pathetic story. His mind travels back 3 years ago when he returned from the war, exhausted from so much death, and just longed for the warmth of a family. At that time, he fell in love at first sight with the redhead, imagining he would spend the rest of his life with a girl who seemed sweet and pure. Returning to the harsh reality of the present, the young master observes the destroyed hall and the fallen bodies, feeling that all that sentiment was a huge waste. In a lightning-fast advance, the young man grabs the gang leader by the collar before he can react. A loud crack echoes through the room as the criminal's wrist is twisted without the slightest mercy, eliciting an agonizing scream of pain. Staring coldly at the mobster, the president immediately demands to know who was behind that false robbery accusation. Sweating, the tattooed man tries to maintain his tough guy facade, stating that in the underworld, he's not afraid of his end, and warns that the young man will regret it if he keeps messing with him. The cowardly uncle intervenes, yelling for his son-in-law to stop the assault in front of his grandmother, as he knows that if the gangster confesses, he himself will be exposed. With a look of contempt, our MC ignores the uncle's desperation and repeats that he never stole anything, warning that if they have proof, they can call the police to arrest him. Turning his back on the family, he sets the small poodle down and begins to walk towards the mansion's exit. Petting the animal's head one last time, he says he won't be coming back to that place and advises the little dog not to be picky with its food, since the people there are no good. The relatives swallow hard, watching the young man leave, while the uncle quietly comments that they don't have the strength to defeat him and will need to use other methods to take him out in the future. Faking concern, the man in the suit runs to help the fallen mobster, apologizing for getting him involved in that terrible mess. Trembling with rage, the criminal grabs the rich guy's collar, demanding another $1 million immediately to cover the medical expenses of his beaten brothers. The coward hastily agrees, promising to pay the extra amount just to get rid of the gangster, who is already getting into his car. With a bruised face, the gang leader looks in the rearview mirror, swearing he will get revenge for the public humiliation and the almost crippled hand, no matter the cost. The scene cuts to the modern meeting room of the Hoshin Group, where Vice President Kyun officially announces beginning of the cooperation with the Wang family's real estate company. With authority, she orders them to notify the Wangs to send representatives immediately to explain the project plans directly to the big boss. The news doesn't take long to reach the Shishin mansion, bringing a climate of relief and celebration to the arrogant rich folks. Holding his cell phone, Uncle Jikyang informs the matriarch that the executive has accepted the $70 million financing but demanded a face-to-face meeting with the corporation's mysterious CEO. Excited by the golden opportunity, the old woman tells her son to do a great job with the presentation to leave an excellent impression on the tycoon and secure future partnerships. Hugging her father's arm, the cousin in the red blouse uses a whiny voice, asking for permission to accompany him to the important business meeting. Aware of the corporate world's gossip, the seductive girl confesses to having heard that the new president is a young and wonderful man, very different from the usual old executives. Crossing her arms, the redhead tries to clip her cousin's wings, reminding her that no matter how handsome the tycoon is, he has already publicly admitted to being Kyun Hongyan's lover. Full of self-confidence, the girl argues that they are not married and boasts of having a much better body and being younger than the vice president, guaranteeing she can easily steal the rich man away. Supporting her younger granddaughter, the matriarch agrees that remarkable men should be fought over and encourages the girl to use all her charms. Excited by her grandmother's blessing, the cousin celebrates the chance to become a trillionaire's wife and elevate her own family's status. Bothered by the favoritism, the ex-wife complains that the original project idea was hers and demands to go along to the meeting at the company headquarters. Mockingly, the woman in red throws it in the redhead's face that she is already a divorced woman and questions why a powerful president would want another man's rejects. Advising her eldest granddaughter, the old woman tells her to be content with the young Master Fang and leave the real tycoon in the capable hands of the younger one. Crying with rage, the redhead turns her back and runs down the hall, blaming her grandmother for being so biased and unfair all the time. An hour passes, and the two representatives of the Wang family arrive at the imposing executive floor, being received by Secretary Zhou. The employee with glasses directs the guests to wait in the reception room while the big boss prepares to see them. Inside his office, our MC hears the confirmation of his enemy's arrival and coldly orders his assistant not to serve them a single drop of tea. Waiting in the luxurious room, the cousin shows off an extremely tight and provocative Chinese dress, trying to understand why her father forced her to wear such a high-necked outfit. The man in the suit explains that if she dresses like a call girl, the president will only see her as a cheap mistress, but by wearing a classic outfit, she will project the image of a demure and worthy wife. Understanding her father's cunning, the girl thanks him for the advice and promises to seduce the tycoon to ensure that the position of head of the family remains in their hands. More than 10 minutes pass, and the two begin to find the delay strange, questioning the lack of hospitality of that gigantic corporation for not even offering a cup of water. Out of patience, the cousin calls the secretary, demanding 2 cups of black tea immediately, but only receives a curt request to continue waiting. Another 10 minutes drag on, and the girl punches the back of the sofa, fuming with rage at the assistant's audacity in ignoring them like that. Trying to calm things down, her father asks her not to freak out, arguing that as soon as she becomes the president's wife, she can fire the insolent employee whenever she wants. A full half-hour passes with the woman maintaining her good girl pose, crossing her legs, and trying to look elegant for her future husband. Exhausted from forcing the refined posture, she complains that she can't stand sitting like that anymore, wondering why on earth the tycoon is taking so long. The suited uncle finally realizes the game and mutters that the president clearly doesn't value them and has kept them waiting on purpose to test their patience. The door finally opens, revealing the imposing figure of our MC, who scoffs at the cousin for trying to act like an elegant damsel when at home, she is completely sloppy. Shocked by her ex-cousin, in-law's presence, the girl's eyes widen, stammering his name, not understanding how he got in there. On the defensive, she crosses her arms, guaranteeing she didn't wear that stunning outfit for him, telling the trash to stop having delusions of grandeur and thinking she wants him. The man in the suit gets up, indignant, questioning what a simple bodyguard is doing on the executive floor and demands to see the real president immediately. With a serene expression, the young man mentally notes that this family's ignorance knows no bounds and tells them to present the project right there. Furious at the audacity, the uncle calls our MC a useless security guard, stating that someone like him would never understand multi-million-dollar business deals. Turning his back on the pair, the young master shrugs and coldly decrees that if they don't want to talk to him, they can get out of the building right now. Desperate not to lose the financing, the cousin grabs the young man's jacket, stopping him from leaving, and asks him to wait a minute because she wants to ask a question. With a cunning look, she deduces that since he has been the vice president's guard dog for 2 days, he must surely know the intimate secrets between her and the mysterious tycoon, while the young man ironically agrees, saying he knows just a little bit. The bold girl takes the opportunity to ask how intimate the relationship between the vice president and the tycoon is, wanting to find out if they live together and sleep in the same bed. Our MC assesses the situation, deducing that the gossipy cousin will spread any answer, and decides to use this to his advantage to clear up the false rumors about the executive. With the utmost naturalness, the young man drops the bomb, revealing that the two have broken up, leaving the uncle and cousin completely speechless. The woman in the dress celebrates, throwing her arms up, thinking that the heavens are helping her, while her suspicious father asks the reason for the sudden breakup. Casting an analytical look, the young man just lets out a murmur, realizing that the two have fallen perfectly into his trap of lies. Disguising her tone, the girl suggests that from that moment on, she can start calling him Little Chen. But he refuses, asking her to continue calling him President, to maintain respect. The man in the suit hears that and calls his own daughter a pig brain, reminding her that the useless delivery guy is just a common company employee now. Full of arrogance, the uncle scoffs, saying that his daughter will be the great boss's future wife and that consequently, the loser will end up becoming a distant relative of his again if the plan works out. The girl in the tight dress brags, agreeing with her father, and firmly believes that any man would fall in love with her since she has always remained pure and without boyfriends. With her confidence sky high, she even supposes that the mysterious man who sent the multi-million-dollar jade bracelet at the banquet was the president himself, and deduces that he must have been a secret admirer for years. Crossing his arms, the young master reflects that the girl is overly confident, but admits aloud that he doesn't need to investigate because the jewel was indeed sent by the group's CEO. Ecstatic with the confirmation, the cousin jumps for joy and celebrates, repeating to her father that her female intuition was absolutely correct from the beginning. Uncle Jikyung laughs emotionally, embracing the idea that the most powerful president in the city is really in love with his daughter. Excited, he pats the girl's shoulder, guaranteeing that he will run to tell the old matriarch the news, and that with the position of the tycoon's father-in-law, the role of family leader is already his. Our MC observes the pair's delusion and thinks to himself how despicable and ridiculous that family is for desperately wanting another marriage of convenience. Getting back to the main point, the girl asks where the president has gone, claiming she really wants to see him, but the young man coldly replies that the boss is busy with guests in the reception room. Tired of waiting, the suited uncle comments that the clients must be extremely difficult to deal with to be holding the tycoon's attention for so long. The father analyzes his own daughter, noticing that she is dressed very seductively, and deduces that this is why the boss didn't want to come out, so as not to be distracted. Pulling the girl by the arm, he scolds her and warns her not to make a bad impression on their first official meeting. Afraid of ruining their chances, the uncle decides that the best thing to do is wait outside and send a notification as soon as the boss is free, pulling his daughter away. Just 5 minutes after the enemies leave, Secretary Joe enters the room, sighing and apologizing for making them wait so long, reporting that the president just left. The employee also relays the boss's message, telling them to head back first, leaving the uncle speechless. Confused, the man in the suit asks if the tycoon mentioned what time he would be available in the afternoon, but the assistant just shakes her head and sends them off. With his cell phone in hand, the girl's father leaves the building, calling the matriarch and pretending to have had a very fruitful trip. The scene cuts to the Grand Sishin mansion, where the old woman answers the call excitedly, hoping for good news. The redhead curiously asks if the financing contract has finally been finalized, but her aunt replies that the reason for the call is to announce a much happier event. All snobbish, the woman in the fur coat passes on the gossip, saying that the donor of the multi-million-dollar bracelet is actually the powerful President Yi himself, leaving everyone in shock. Confused and disappointed, the ex-wife lowers her head, feeling foolish for having believed, even for a second, that the gift could be from Yi Chen. The girl's father with glasses raises a pertinent question, asking how this would be a good thing for them since the president is dating Kyun Hongyan and sent the gift out of consideration for her. The aunt smiles superiorly and drops the news that the executive couple has already broken up and that the door is open. Full of herself, the older woman tosses her hair and rhetorically asks who other than her daughter Yuan could be the real reason for the tycoon having sent the jewel. The matriarch agrees, nodding her head, full of pride for her granddaughter, believing that this analysis makes perfect sense and not expecting him to arrive so suddenly. The ambitious cousin promises to elevate the Wang family status to the first class of Yunzhou, filling her grandmother with happiness. Bothered by the gossip, the redhead questions her aunt about the source of this information and gets the answer that it was her useless ex-husband who told them. The aunt ignores her niece's suspicion, announcing that her daughter will visit the president in the afternoon without her father, guaranteeing that the seduction will work perfectly. With a look full of malice, the woman in the dress tells her cousin that since she has nothing due in the afternoon, she will be her driver to the Huaxing group. Trembling with rage, the redhead yells that her cousin is crossing the line and rudely says she's too busy to be her chauffeur. Ignoring the order, the girl runs out angrily, slamming the door and leaving her relative shouting her name in the hallway. The dark sedan speeds down the road as the ex-wife punches the steering wheel, cursing non-stop for the humiliation she just suffered. The vehicle accelerates sharply, making the tires squeal through the streets as the girl's mind boils. Braking suddenly, the car hits a corner, and the woman huffs in fury, feeling like an idiot and being the family's joke thanks to the gossip spread by the useless guy. Banging her forehead on the steering wheel, she repeats over and over how much she hates her ex-husband, blaming him for making her lose all respect within her own home. The scene cuts to our MC's imposing office, where he hears the phone ringing incessantly. The president answers seriously, only to receive a shrill scream from his ex-wife, calling him a jerk. Closing his eyes in irritation, he wonders what's wrong with that girl who refuses to reflect on her own mistakes and only calls to fight. On the other end of the line, the redhead yells, questioning why he revealed the bracelet story to her uncle when he had initially promised he would be the one to take the credit. Maintaining a firm tone, the young master retorts, stating that he told the truth from the very beginning, and it was the fault of her ignorant relatives for not believing him. The orange-haired girl ignores the excuse, grumbling that now everyone thinks the gift was from the boss, and that her cousin is going to steal him, also complaining that they made her a driver. The young man scoffs, irritated, coldly asking if she didn't have that young master from the Fang family to show off with. Wife lowers her tone, confessing that the playboy Fang Cho doesn't even come close to a real corporate president, being on completely different levels. A bitter laugh escapes our MC's lips as he scoffs at hearing that the woman thinks a stranger is much better than himself. In an act of desperation, she argues that even with the divorce, he at least helped her maintain her composure in front of her envious relatives and demands that he clean up the mess. Gripping his cell phone tightly, the young man thinks about the woman's stupidity and threatens to hang up if she continues to just yell at him in the middle of his workday. Desperate, the girl begs him not to hang up, quickly confessing that she only called to ask for a big favor. Out of patience, the young master questions what exactly she wants him to do in the middle of all this mess. With an envious tone, the redhead asks him to prevent the president from meeting her cousin that afternoon in any way, so the project doesn't take off. Aware of his own power, the young man scoffs, suggesting he could just put laxatives in the girl's tea and keep her in the bathroom all day or rip her dress as she passes by. The ex-wife interrupts the mockery, telling him to stop bragging as if all he has to do is say no and the president will obey. RMC cuts off the lecture by hanging up on the woman, who huffs in rage at his absurd arrogance. The clock strikes 2 in the afternoon when the spoiled cousin, wearing her extravagant dress, returns to the lobby, demanding to see the president. The secretary with glasses intercepts her immediately and coldly tells her to leave, explaining that the boss will not be returning to the office in the afternoon. The assistant also takes the opportunity to deliver a fatal jab, saying that the girl is too dressed up and that the boss fears it will distract from work. Shocked by the rejection, the cousin stammers, asking if the president really found her so beautiful that he asked them to switch negotiators. Following the script, the employee agrees, saying that the tycoon loves her tight clothes and even follows the girl's social media, and if she wants to be a model, she will recommend her. Without the slightest dignity, the woman agrees to be replaced and even offers casual coffee or movie dates to the tycoon, stating she's free at any time. Before leaving, she pulls a wad of cash from her purse, pushing the notes towards the secretary and asking for one last little favor. With a malicious smile, she asks the assistant to take a hidden photo of the handsome president's face and send it to her later. The employee immediately refuses the bribe, pushing the money back and saying she doesn't have any photos of the boss. Leaning in, the assistant whispers that the president is an absurdly attractive man and seems to be the same age as the cousin, leaving the woman weak in the knees. Watching the socialite leave, sighing down the corridors, the secretary crosses her arms and comments aloud on how idiotic and brainless the girl is, being so easily manipulated. The scene transitions to the imposing city of T-Man in an unknown country, showing a lit-up and chaotic metropolis. Inside a luxurious room, an old mobster serves whiskey to the crime leader from Yunzhou, asking what went wrong with him. The tattooed gang leader bows respectfully, saying he didn't seek out Master Liu for no reason, as he made mistakes in the city and desperately needs help. Two glasses full of amber liquid rest on the table as tension fills the room in a deadly silence. The old man slams his hand violently on the table, screaming in pure rage upon discovering that all of his dozens of goons left under his subordinate's command were crippled at once. The gang leader bows even lower, begging for forgiveness for his own uselessness, and asking the old mobster to apply whatever punishment he sees fit. Smoking a thick cigar, the old man lets out a dense puff of smoke and mutters that times have changed and that taking someone out for any reason no longer solves problems like it used to. With a voice laden with experience, he explains that criminals like them live in the darkness with no place under the sun, and that was precisely why he left Yunzhou 2 years ago to focus on poorer places in Southeast Asia. The tattooed man pleads desperately, begging for half of the master's intelligence so as not to end up in this miserable state, and asks for permission to lead 100 men there to avenge his brothers. The old man answers a call on his cell phone, interrupting the conversation, and tells his subordinate that they are both orphans, but that all the achievements he has today are thanks to Master Fang's training. The mysterious voice on the other end of the line introduces itself as Master Fang, politely greeting the legendary boss who once dominated the underworld. With a respectful smile, the old man reports that he plans to return to Yunzhou in the next 2 days to settle some matters and bring some specially prepared gifts for his superior. The criminal swallows hard, hearing his boss say that Master Fang is already in Yunzhou and that luck is on their side. In a flash of pure fury, the old man backhands the tattooed man across the face, calling him useless for thinking that someone of Master Fang's level would need an appointment to see him. Focused gaze, the mob leader orders them to prepare an immediate flight, announcing that he will visit Master Fang personally and will take advantage of the trip to deal with this boy named Ye Chen. Relieved, the subordinate celebrates the boss's decision, screaming to the high heavens that he wants to see the delivery guy gone, one way or another. Night falls over Yunzhou, and the lights of the Wang family residence turn on, contrasting with the dark sky. In the living room, the woman in the tight dress complains that the president couldn't discuss business just because her father was also present, but smiles when the man in the suit states that the tycoon is really in love with her. Uncle Jiking deduces that since the boss ordered the negotiator to be changed, he just wanted to ensure the girl would come back to see him the next day, and they both celebrate. A cell phone screen glows in the darkness, showing a threatening message guaranteeing that the next day, the ex-husband will regret being born. The scene focuses on our MC reading the threat on his own cell phone with a challenging smile, murmuring that he can't wait to see the useless guy tomorrow. The sun rises again over the imposing stone facade of the Shishin mansion, illuminating the grand gates of the property. Sitting on a leather sofa, butler Master Fang politely says that there is no need for the mob boss to bow to him. The old criminal refuses to lift his head, keeping his hat to his chest, and swears he will never forget the great favor the butler did by training him and making him the powerful man he is today. Calmly sipping a cup of tea, the man in the suit explains that he was sent by the old master with the exclusive mission of helping the third young master. In shock, the mobster stammers, asking if he's serious, because the master above Master Fang is a legendary figure and part of the most powerful group in the world. The butler nods and warns the old man to control his subordinates, because if they cause trouble and bother the third young master, they will face severe consequences. Sweating, the criminal immediately agrees, aware that offending someone with the third young master's absurd status would be an unforgivable crime, worthy of 10,000 deaths. The man in the suit hands a photograph to the old man, revealing the face of the third young master, and instructs him not to bother him during his family trial phase unless he is summoned. Looking at our MC's photo, the mobster praises the young man's incomparable beauty, dreaming of having the honor of meeting him personally in the future, and hears that the young man will be in the city for another year or two. Changing the subject, the butler questions why the old man suddenly brought 100 men from various countries to Yunzhou. The mobster explains that a local goon named Ziguo got into trouble, and he had to bring in the heavy gang to deal with the problem. The butler is satisfied, not caring about the details, and invites the old man for a game of chess to test if his skills have improved. Far away, the mirrored facade of the Huaxing group shines under the sunlight as the atmosphere heats up outside. Only the preppy guy complains on his cell phone that the so-called president has kept him waiting in the heat for 2 hours and questions what kind of man in love acts so coldly towards his brother-in-law. Our MC appears behind the rich guy, demanding the presence of the famous fake president and asking what the preppy guy wants with him anyway. With an ironic smile, the young master retorts the provocation, questioning if he is the one talking to a late idiot. The preppy guy bursts out laughing, pointing his finger and mocking the young man for wearing an expensive suit trying to pose as a great tycoon, stating that his lack of awareness is a joke. With his hands in his pockets and a dominant posture, our MC just watches the enemy's show of stupidity. The coward threatens the delivery guy, throwing it in his face that the assault on the goons will not go unpunished, as many of Yunjo's big shots will not let the offense slide. Mocking the threat, the president asks if the goon Zigua didn't go crying to his big brother Gua for help to get revenge on him. With a cold look, he warns that he has been spending time with the vice president lately and that if those thugs show up at the workplace, they could cause unwanted trouble for her. The young master loosens his tie and challenges the rich guy, telling him to call the mobsters and get everyone there in the company parking lot to settle the score once and for all, without any delays. Excited by the proposal, the preppy guy pulls out his cell phone, promising to call the crime boss's goons right away, and tells him not to run away. The scene cuts to the darkness of the company's underground parking garage, where footsteps echo on the concrete. A large group of armed thugs appears, descending the ramp toward the agreed-upon location. The coward rubs his hands, smiling maliciously, and announces that he has already destroyed all the surveillance cameras on the floor so there will be no evidence when they beat him to a pulp. Laughing at his own luck, our MC agrees with the logic, pointing out that by the same rules, if he beats the rich guy up, there will be no evidence either. Frightened by the cold response, the preppy guy takes a step back as the delivery guy's eyes gleam with fury in the dark. A cry of pain tears through the silence of the parking garage as the coward is violently struck, throwing his head back. Hiding behind the newly arrived thugs, the preppy guy desperately points, accusing our MC of not following the rules by hitting him before calling the aggressors. The young man casually wipes his hand after hitting the coward and tells the goon Jigua to let go of the preppy guy's shirt so as not to ruin his clothes. Furious at the audacity, the tattooed leader orders his 10 strongest men to attack the target simultaneously. The goons surround the young master from all sides, ready to break their opponent's bones on the concrete of the parking garage. In the blink of an eye, our MC unleashes a storm of punches and kicks impossible to follow, hitting several enemies at once. Panting slightly after taking down the first group, the young man agrees that 10 people are quite tiring, but scoffs at the gangster, demanding he send another 10 stronger ones to try again. The criminal smiles to himself, thinking that the 10 street goons couldn't handle the job, and proposes to forgive the young man if he kneels and recognizes him as his boss. Maintaining his posture, the president glares at the tattooed man with contempt and decrees that the mobster is not worthy of his submission in the slightest. Picking up his phone, the gangster calls Lord Liu directly, begging him to immediately send the experienced goons he brought from Asia, as the regular thugs can't handle it. On the other end of the line, the old boss strokes his beard, intrigued to learn that an expert of that caliber can take down 10 at once, and orders to know the location to recruit the talent personally. Just 10 minutes pass, and the headlights of a luxury vehicle illuminate the entrance of the underground garage, cutting through the gloom. The old Lord Liu gets out of the car hurriedly as the tattooed mobster celebrates the arrival of the great boss as if victory were already won. Complaining, the criminal says that 10 men were not enough to take down the trashy Chen and warns that 100 thugs would solve the problem easily. Pushing his subordinate aside, the old man calls the goon useless and advances hurriedly, his eyes fixed on the silhouette further ahead. The underworld's top leader narrows his eyes in the dark, focused only on seeing the face of the mysterious fighter named Yi Chen to recruit him and take him with him to Asia. Panting, our MC tries to catch his breath, recognizing that facing the 10 men cost a large part of his stamina, and concludes that facing dozens of experienced enemies would be extremely risky. Evaluating his options in the short amount of time, the young master decides that the only viable strategy is to advance directly and focus only on subduing Lord Liu himself to paralyze the entire gang. The cowardly preppy guy continues to spew insults, ordering the trashy son-in-law not to dare offend the legendary boss, or he will meet his end, and suggests he kneel and beg for forgiveness to avoid the pain. The old mobster clears his throat dryly, noticing that the fighter is not the least bit intimidated. However, upon getting close enough to see the face illuminated by the emergency lights, the boss is completely lost for words, pointing a trembling finger and his eyes widening in despair, while the preppy guy yells for him to beat the trash senseless. In a violent and unexpected blow, the old criminal lands a devastating slap on the preppy guy's face, making him spit blood and fly backward, shocking all the thugs. In a move of pure humiliation, the underworld boss throws himself to his knees on the cold concrete floor, bowing his back and stammering in terror the title. Young Master. In front of the ex-delivery guy. Sweating, the old man swears loyalty with a choked voice and desperately repeats that he is just a simple subordinate of Master Fang, begging for forgiveness with his forehead pressed to the ground before the fury of the one he was vowing to eliminate just minutes ago. With a cold and haughty look, our MC recognizes the title and finally understands that this brutal mobster is just a mere subordinate of his family's trusted butler. Completely confused, the tattooed gangster tries to understand the reason for the extreme reverence, reminding the old man that the young man is nothing more than a loser's son-in-law who lives in humiliation and without money. Rage boils up in Lord Liu, who bellows for the useless tattooed man to kneel and bow to the true young master before he pays for his stupidity with his own life. Not understanding the extent of his mistake, the goon hesitates but is brutally thrown to the ground by the old man, who tells him to bang his head on the concrete 100 times, shouting that if the sound isn't loud enough, he'll start over from zero. Pressing his face to the ground, the mobster pleads in tears for Brother Yi Chen's forgiveness, taking the blame for being blind and not realizing that he was someone at the top of the power chain. Lying on the ground with a swollen face, the preppy guy stammers in horror at the scene, asking how the humiliated ex-husband suddenly became a master adored by the city's biggest Asian gangster. With a serene expression without moving a muscle in his face, the president gives an absolute order that the gangster doesn't need to humiliate himself and says that his only job now is to drag the rich guy to explain, once and for all, to the Wong family the true origin of the multi-million-dollar jewel. Desperate to save himself from punishment, the tattooed gangster points a finger and promises to tell the Wong family that he was instructed by the rich guy to set up the whole farce against the young master. With fury in his eyes, the old Lord Liu pushes the coward's head down, ordering him to be thrown in the river for falsely accusing his superior. Our MC slides his foot and grabs the mobster's arm to prevent the execution, while the preppy guy begs to be saved, pathetically appealing to the title of brother-in-law. A look of disgust crosses the ex-husband's face as he immediately rejects the kinship, while the coward offers to get his own sisters drunk and send them to his bed in exchange for forgiveness. Indignant at such a lack of humanity, the young man lands a violent kick on the man, calling him an animal for treating his own family like a commodity. After pushing the trash away, the president turns his back and calmly orders the mobsters to let the coward go alive for today. Without looking back, he demands that the preppy guy go home and confess the whole truth about the false robbery accusation to his family. On the hall floor, the rich guy flees hastily, thankfully relieved by the mercy he received. The old underworld leader bows respectfully, offering his 100 newly arrived goons from Southeast Asia to serve the young master as compensation for his mistake. Upon evaluating the offer, the young man agrees and tells the thugs to stand down, noting that this group will be useful for handling more obscure and violent situations in the future. The scene changes, revealing the imposing traditional architecture of the Sishin mansion under the daylight. With his face completely swollen and covered in bandages, the coward appears before his grandmother and uncle, trying to hide the brutal beating he took. He lies shamelessly, saying he was in a car accident and confesses to having forged the watch theft to frame the ex-son-in-law, warning that the young man knows terrible people and should not be provoked. The old matriarch bangs on her chair, irritated, but soon dismisses the delivery guy's innocence, claiming that if he didn't steal from them, he certainly stole from someone else to afford a 5-star hotel. In a quick change of subject, the old woman asks expectantly if her grandson managed to go to the Huashing group to meet with the great president. The old woman crosses her arms suspiciously, questioning if the mysterious president refuses to talk business unless she goes to the company personally. The redhead takes the lead, suggesting that she herself try to approach him, justifying that the project was planned by her along with her ex-husband and that the presence of the true author should attract the tycoon. Without missing a chance to take a jab, the woman in the red dress scoffs at her cousin's overconfidence, reminding her that the entire family has been rejected before. Ignoring the granddaughter's fight, the matriarch gives the order for the ex-wife to go to the corporation to try and close the deal. Firmly, the old woman decrees that if her granddaughter fails, she herself will pay a visit to the president, guaranteeing that the cooperation with the Huashing group must happen at all costs. The clock strikes 2 in the afternoon when the redhead arrives at the mirrored lobby of the company, wearing a short and provocative skirt. Secretary Joe receives the guest politely, asking her to wait in the reception room as the president is still busy. Sitting on the sofa, the girl stares at the cup handed to her by the employee, surprised to realize that the drink served as hot water with honey. A wave of nostalgia hits the ex-wife as she remembers that for the past 3 years, her useless ex-husband prepared that exact same drink for her every morning. The scene changes to the brightness and luxury of the presidential office. The assistant with glasses enters the room, informing her boss that Miss Wang Jiaqi has just arrived for the meeting. Vice President Kyun casts a curious look at our MC, asking if he really intends to receive the woman who humiliated him. The young master explains that he has already refused the uncle and the cousin, so another refusal would make the family think they are being played with, and decides to release the promised 70 million to avoid a headache. Ready to act, the executive picks up the blue folder, agreeing to take the contract for signing immediately. With a serious posture, the president approaches the door, ready to face the woman from his past. The redhead stands up from the sofa, surprised to see her ex-husband calmly entering the reception room. With a smug smile, she deduces that the great tycoon was very busy and therefore sent his useless security guard to keep her company. Our MC hands her the blue folder, coldly stating that he has no interest in making small talk. He instructs her to read the contract, confirming that the 70 million will be transferred to her family's company account in 3 installments within a week. Radiant with the news, the girl opens the folder, believing that the president quickly approved the multi-million-dollar amount because he loved the business proposal. Her smile vanishes as she reads the document's title, which names the project Jiaoyi First Class Residence. Confused, she points to the paper, demanding to know why that specific name is stamped at the top of the corporate contract. Keeping his cool, the young man reminds her that he handed her that exact plan more than half a year ago. Sitting in the armchair, he explains that the real estate project was tailor-made for her and therefore carried that original title from the beginning. The young master reveals that at the time he used his own resources to ensure the construction got off the ground, aiming to prove his worth at the end of the 3-year trial period as a son-in-law. The girl realizes that the entire real estate empire was a wedding gift plan for her and timidly asks if the name Jiaoyi was a tribute. The young man shatters the romantic mood, explaining that the words for residence and death sounded too similar, bringing bad luck, and that's why the main name was changed. Her pride wounded, the ex-wife accuses the delivery guy of having begged on his knees for the current boss to use that title in the contract, just to try and impress her. The young man's hands clench into fists as he listens to the woman's absurd theories, as she refuses to see the truth. Glancing at the redhead from the side, our MC maintains his composure in the face of her lack of gratitude, ignoring the empty provocations with a serious look. The girl gets lost in her own imagination, concluding that the tycoon liked the name because of the character for delicious food, and accuses her ex-husband of being afraid to admit he still loves her. Exhausted by this meaningless conversation, the president tells her to shut up and sign the papers once and for all. With a victorious smile, the redhead stamps the contract with the company seal, celebrating the fact that her grandmother will be proud of her success in the negotiation. The young master collects the signed copy for filing and asks her to wait a moment before leaving. Excited by her victory, the ex offers to buy him lunch as a thank you, suggesting a humble restaurant outside the city that she calls Duck Noodles. The young man coldly refuses the invitation and corrects her, stating that the correct name is Chicken Noodles, proving that even though she accompanied him several times, she never paid attention and never truly loved him. Offended, the girl raises her voice, shouting that it was already a great sacrifice to accompany him to such a poor and dirty place. Turning her back, annoyed, she says that since he doesn't want to go, she will eat at a fancy Western restaurant with her boyfriend Fang Chao. Upon opening the reception room door, the redhead gets a shock and freezes in place. The stunning figure of Vice President Kyun Hongyan appears in the hallway, looking the guest up and down with a sharp smile. Intimidated by the executive's imposing presence, the girl lowers her head and greets her respectfully, trying to hide her nervousness. The dark-haired beauty watches the redhead leave, thinking about the foolishness of that woman for using a meeting with an idiot just to try and provoke the real president. With an analytical look, the executive gazes at her boss, noticing that his tense expression indicates that old feelings for his ex-wife still affect him in some way. Smiling seductively, the vice president concludes that winning the tycoon's heart will be a long war and offers to tear up the multi-million-dollar contract if the redhead has annoyed him. Our MC adjusts his suit and guarantees that he will keep his word, keeping the business agreement intact as promised. The executive confesses to have accidentally overheard the conversation and, using her charm, asks her boss to take her to that humble chicken noodle restaurant for them to try together. The young man casually accepts the proposal, while the woman smiles, internally celebrating the success of her quick approach. An hour and a half later, the couple arrives at the simple facade of the restaurant, where the president warns that the food there might not suit the refined palate of a rich woman. The beauty dismisses the concern, stating that good food is not divided into cheap or noble, and that even though she frequents luxury places, she knows how to appreciate dishes that cost just a few bucks. Observing her understanding posture, the young master recognizes that his subordinate built her own empire by overcoming many difficulties, which makes her completely different from spoiled heiresses. Suddenly, the executive's delicate hands grip the young man's arm firmly. She apologizes for the sudden contact, explaining that the ground is uneven at the entrance and she's afraid of tripping in her thin high heels. Our MC allows the closeness, telling her to hold on tight as he carefully guides her along the uneven street path. The woman's affectionate touch brings back bitter memories of the past, recalling the countless times he tried to hold his ex-wife's hand and was violently rejected. The pain of betrayal returns as he remembers that, in the end, it was another man who had the privilege of holding the hand and embracing the body of the redhead he loved so much. Noticing the drastic change in her boss's expression, the vice president asks with concern why he looks so grim. The young man hides his anguish, saying it's nothing, and takes the opportunity to ask her to call him by his first name while they are outside the corporate environment. The woman insists, wanting to know what thoughts made him so unhappy all of a sudden in the middle of a pleasant outing. Looking towards the horizon, the young master hides the truth as he imagines his ex-wife sharing a romantic dinner with the arrogant playboy at that very moment. A murderous look crosses the president's face as he seriously ponders whether he should have ordered the mobster to break the lover's third leg, leaving the executive confused by his sudden silence. In a luxurious Western restaurant in the city center, the seductive cousin questions why she was suddenly invited to dinner by her older sister. Instead of answering, the redhead just raises her arm and hands over the document that seals the multi-million-dollar deal with washing. Opening the folder, the girl is surprised to see that the contract has indeed been signed and is left speechless when she reads that the project is named after her ex-sister-in-law. The perverse smile, the girl in red accuses the redhead of having slept with the company's president to get the approval so quickly. Cynically, she recalls that the initial plan was for her sister to rent a hotel room and seduce Fang Chao to secure financial help. Annoyed by the insinuations, the redhead tells her cousin to shut up and rudely snatches the document from her hands. Trying to justify herself, the ex-wife claims she just wanted to please her grandmother and solve the family's financial problem with Fang Chiao's help. With a melancholic look, she confesses that she really likes the project proposal that her ex-husband planned, even though she knows he's just a delivery guy now. Lying to herself, she swears that she only pretended to agree to the playboy's advances to secure the family's investment, without ever having intended to sleep with him. The cousin rolls her eyes and ironically accepts the flimsy excuse, calling her the purest woman in the world just to end the discussion. Sipping her drink, the girl in red raises the real question, asking why such a powerful tycoon would use the redhead's name to christen a corporate project of that size. With her ego inflated, the ex-wife brags, lying that her useless ex-husband begged on his knees for the president to change the project's name just because he loved her too much. The cousin swallows the lie, laughing, and praises the redhead's seductive ability to keep such an obedient little dog at her feet. Changing the subject, she advises her sister to follow the original plan, marry the Fang heir, help the family achieve first-class status, and inherit at least $500 million when the old matriarch passes away. The girl in red concludes the macabre strategy by suggesting that after getting her hands on the money, the redhead can simply divorce the playboy and remarry her ex-husband, guaranteeing that the poor guy will accept the humiliation with open arms. The redhead agrees with the evil plan as the two sisters conspire together, toasting their future victories with cups of tea. The delicate sound of the cups clinking echoes as the ex-wife says she will need her cousin's help to put the strategy into practice at the right moment. Time passes quickly, and night envelops the imposing Sishan mansion, with the yellow lights highlighting the traditional contours of the house. In the living room, the father scolds the redhead for having summoned them, as he had planned to go to the movies with old classmates, and demands that she not try to delay the family's project. With the utmost poise, the girl throws the multi-million-dollar contract on the table and announces that she has already gotten all the signatures for the agreement. Shocked, the suited uncle points his finger and questions how it was possible for her to close the partnership so quickly, and without his help. The other relative also refuses to believe it and snatches the folder from the table, stating that it must be a joke. Upon reading the document, the cousin in red laughs mockingly, pointing out that the redhead changed the project's name to massage her own ego, asking if she has no shame in forging a signature, just for vanity. The man in the suit agrees with his daughter, reminding her that the vice president knows them and that this farce wouldn't hold up. Calmly sipping her tea, the grandmother intervenes and tells them to call Executive Chun directly, asking if the contract is real and if the project's name was really changed to honor the redhead. After hanging up the phone, the uncle is speechless, informing the family that the woman confirmed the authenticity of the document and the changes. With her eyes shining, the matriarch celebrates, hugging her granddaughter and swearing to reward her well for having brought the promised $70 million to their coffers. The redhead tosses her hair and lies that she just demanded the project bear her name without even needing to see the so-called president face to face, using only her charm. In an act of pure envy, the cousin throws the folder away and yells, calling her a divorced woman, guaranteeing that a powerful CEO would never agree to be her doormat or sign something in her name. The old woman quickly stands up, reprimanding her younger granddaughter at the top of her lungs and ordering her to shut up so as not to ruin the moment of victory. Maintaining her good girl mask, the redhead plays the victim, explaining that all negotiations were strictly professional and without any use of seduction, demanding that her uncle take the role of the project's general director. The grandmother immediately agrees with the suggestion and appoints her own son as the head and her red-haired granddaughter as the vice director to closely manage the financing. Feeling betrayed, the redhead's eyes widen and she argues that she was the one who conceived and signed the project, questioning why she didn't get the absolute leadership position. The uncle lunges forward furiously, threatening to hit his niece for daring to try and go over his head and take control of the finances. Trying to ease the conflict, the old woman tells her granddaughter that her experience is still limited, advising her to learn from her uncle at the beginning and promising a better position in the future if she shows good results. Swallowing her hatred, the ex-wife clenches her skirt tightly and mutters that she understands the decision, accepting the submissive role. Forcing a fake smile, she thanks her grandmother for the opportunities, promising to work hard while internally vowing that as soon as she gets the necessary connections, she will crush everyone who stands in her way. The scene cuts to the red car parked in front of Wang Yuanyuan's house under the moonlight. Complaining alone in her room, the cousin in red rips off her clothes indignantly, throwing it in her face that the divorced redhead still thinks she has the right to try and seduce the president with just a low-cut top. Taking a hot shower, she swears she will never let her older sister get involved with the millionaire, stating that she spared no effort to keep her own body perfect and that she needs to act quickly. Holding her phone provocatively, she concludes that the easiest way to ruin her sister's chances is to force her to get married again as soon as possible. Deducing that a married woman would never have the courage to harass the president, she calls a colleague, asking for Fang Qiao's personal contact information. The preppy playboy answers the call amidst the neon lights of a nightclub, questioning in surprise why the woman with the great body decided to contact him. Forcing a whiny voice, she asks if he's very busy or if he could spare a moment to listen to what she has to say. Full of bad intentions, she reports that the redhead perfectly negotiated the 70 million and spreads the gossip that even the president of Huashing has already made a move on her, naming the project after the girl. In shock, the playboy chokes on his drink upon learning that the powerful president who dominates all of Yunzhou has cast his spell on the very woman he intended to marry. Taking advantage of the young man's desperation, the cousin encourages him to rush and propose to the redhead as soon as possible before she falls into the tycoon's clutches. Nervous, the man tries to make excuses, claiming she just got divorced and that rushing things would look bad, but is quickly cut off by the woman who warns him that the redhead's beauty won't wait for him. The coward grinds his teeth in the dark, remembering that the girl's marriage to the ex-delivery guy lasted 3 years but was only on paper, and that he failed miserably in his attempt to sleep with her at the hotel. Blinded by obsession, the playboy confirms his alliance with the cousin and promises to go after the girl, deciding that he will make the official proposal in the coming days. Hanging up the phone, he laughs maliciously, guaranteeing that he will never let a big fish who promises to inherit half of the Wang family's assets slip through his hands. The landscape changes to a dark parking lot in the middle of the night, where Vice President Kyun leans against her own car door, displaying a mysterious smile as she sees the rich guy approach. The preppy guy approaches with open arms, complaining that she wasn't answering her calls and that he had to show up there to get a face-to-face conversation about her ex-security guard. The executive lets out a tired sigh, rudely questioning what his problem is and what exactly he wants after all. Posing as the city's owner, the hero recalls the fight at the old matriarch's banquet, guaranteeing that with the promise made, the ex-delivery guy won't even be able to get a job mopping floors in the region. He continues his blackmail, reporting that he caught the target living in a luxury hotel for days and proposes to offer double his current annual salary for her to fire the young man and return him to the gutter. The woman's eyes widen in surprise at the playboy's audacity in wanting to bribe her to fire her own boss, whom the hare still thinks is just her simple lackey. Doing the math in his head, he estimates that a bodyguard's salary cap must be around 200,000 and confidently offers to pay an astronomical 2 million for her to get rid of the trash. Swallowing her laughter, the executive says that unfortunately, the decision cannot be made by her but agrees to call the young man and ask for his opinion to help the playboy, finding the whole situation very comical. Sitting comfortably on a luxurious sofa, the president answers the phone as the woman explains over speakerphone that Fang Chao is in front of her, wanting to bribe her to fire him. She relays the proposal in rich detail, revealing the large sum he offered as a bribe, and tries to egg the president on to play along a bit, asking if the offer is tempting. Ironically, the young master gets into the theatrical mood, deciding to accept the proposal, and instructs his employee to close the deal with the playboy, demanding only that the 2 million be paid 10 times over immediately via bank transfer. Smiling at the preppy guy, the woman confirms that the bodyguard agreed to the conditions if the deposit is released all at once. The rich guy points his finger triumphantly, asking the executive to send the bank details immediately to get rid of the poor wretch and make him disappear from his sight forever. Relaying the numbers to the Playboy screen, she explains that the amount the young man demanded to leave and accept the proposal was in the millions and cynically asks if he would send the bet amount right now. Upon checking the branch number, the preppy guy accepts, laughing loudly, and clicks transfer, believing he has deposited exactly 6,700,000. The vice president chokes in a mix of shock and irony, trying not to laugh out loud as she realizes Fang Chao's ridiculous poverty, hearing him brag about paying 6,700,000 when he actually thinks he sent 67 million, while a president earns much more. Assuming total seriousness in the charade, the powerful woman coldly confirms to the preppy here, with every word, that she is not in a bar to accept his poor jokes, finding the meager millions a worthy sum. With a dominant gaze, she points a finger at his chest, sharply warning the daddy's boy to tone down his arrogance in the city before wanting to humiliate the great people of the street's hidden power. Annoyed at thinking he's the best, he throws his own supposed wisdom in her face and declares victory in the bet, telling the executive not to lament the day she loses her pet lackey in the dog world of the streets, and gets back in his car. Already stepping on the gas, the preppy guy puffs out his chest with a crooked smile, ironically inviting the executive to come, accompanied by her failed loyal squire, to his ceremony with the rich girl in a while. The big car disappearing under the sky, the woman sighs in a mix of disgust and laughter, advising the rich guy to spend a fortune on his suit, and to cry in the sewers as soon as real life hits him with the identity he so furiously pursues. Enchanted, the woman inwardly praises the cruel intelligence with which Chen will shatter a cocky coward, and his marriage to the Wang when everything blows up. Tying her long hair into a ponytail, she adjusts her dark skirt, coldly hoping that the union will be finalized quickly to sweep the blonde from her boss's mind for good, leaving her with clean hands in the corporation at the end of it all. The view changes, showing the cold air of the enormous metropolis covered in buildings and shining glass in the corporate afternoon of the new day, as an employee runs to the Great Toon's luxurious armchair to give a warning. Sitting in his armchair, the veteran businessman Zheng Hong questions why the leader of Yunzhou's largest group has summoned him, and what he could possibly want with a simple restaurant owner. With a fixed and determined gaze, the president informs him that he wishes to acquire all of the businessman's restaurants to completely destroy a competitor named Zhong Wei in less than 2 months. Impressed, the old owner agrees to the plan, selling his 7 restaurants for 60 million and guaranteeing full cooperation to ruin his rival in Yunzhou. The young master smiles, satisfied, as he closes the deal, remembering that the old matriarch of the Wang family had promised he would never be able to survive in the local restaurant industry. With a pen gliding across the contract paper, he inwardly promises to make his own preppy foe disappear from the city's culinary map as a courtesy for his past audacity. A few days later, the scene changes to the bustling Penglai commercial street at 8 in the morning. The imposing facade of a new restaurant called Yun Zhong Yun attracts the curious gazes of pedestrians who notice the grand establishment opened right across from Zhong Wei's famous Lu Wai Lu. A violent punch hits a wooden table as a man boils with fury inside a luxurious office. The owner of Lu Wai Lu curses indignantly, wanting to know why his rival changed the name and opened a branch right across the street, just to challenge him directly. The assistant tries to calm his boss, reporting that he heard rumors that Zheng Hong mysteriously sold the restaurant days ago and that the new name must be the idea of the hidden buyer. Full of arrogance, the man warns that he will crush this arrogant newcomer in the restaurant industry, vowing to make him lose everything. He orders his subordinates to keep an eye on the rival restaurant and asks for maximum attention to detail, as he will be making a big announcement at his own establishment in the evening. The doors of the luxurious Lu Wai Lu open, revealing an opulent hall, as the manager demands impeccable standards from the waitstaff for the grand marriage proposal ceremony. Far away, in a renowned jewelry store, the preppy Fang Hair admires a stunning diamond engagement ring inside a blue box. Holding the valuable jewel, he smiles maliciously, declaring that he will use today's ceremony to snatch up the redhead from the Wang family for good and secure his future fortune. Dressed in an elegant little black dress, the redhead listens to the playboy's vows of love as he brags about having booked an entire hall just to honor his special proposal that night. Trying to manipulate her, the preppy guy praises the luxurious Lu Wai Lu's proximity to the girl's company, making her life easier as she works on the real estate project. However, the woman's eyes are captured by the bright lights of the rival restaurant's facade, Yun Zhong Yun, across the street. Admiring the beauty and grandeur of the new place, she asks when it opened, stealing the hair's focus for a moment. Full of arrogance, the playboy pretends not to care and promises to get a table at the new establishment for their next meal, insisting that for that night, the banquet was already paid for at his favorite restaurant. Outside, people begin to gossip, admiring the pink balloon decorations spread across the courtyard, commenting on the extravagance of the 100,000 yuan proposal and the mysterious tycoon behind the surprise. The crowd points in amazement at the gift boxes and flowers, thinking the luxurious event is the work of the show-off playboy, but soon their attention shifts to the new restaurant. Completely impressed, the redhead confesses that she was only paying attention to the musical performance, but now notices how stunning, well-planned the romantic event is, wishing she were the recipient of such a surprise. With envy in her eyes, she curses that if she could have a hot night with the guy who organized it all, she would even agree to live 10 years less, stating that only the super elite would have the money for such power. Her ex-husband's voice cuts through her thoughts, questioning in a stern tone if she really wants to propose in the space and at the event that he rented without permission. With a cold expression, the president calls the manager on the radio, ordering that all the trash scattered on the second floor be removed immediately. Oblivious to everything, the playboy with his hair tied back gets on one knee with the little box in his hands, beginning to make the official proposal. Before he can even finish his sentence, he is interrupted by an angry shout from the hall, startling him and completely ruining the mood. A furious cleaning crew advances through the courtyard, banging their brooms, while the hare screams in terror, trying to understand what on earth was happening on his big night. In the blink of an eye, the balloons are popped, and the staff begins to rudely sweep away the petals, kicking the preppy guy out. Desperate, the preppy guy yells at the janitors, asking why they are popping the balloons of his romantic proposal and begging them not to sweep away the roses. The redhead covers her mouth to hide her laughter, finding it hilarious that the proposal that seemed so wonderful ended in such a disaster, and concluding that she didn't want to marry a useless guy like Fang Ko anyway. Inside, the woman sighs in relief, taking advantage of the confusion to get out of the awkward proposal moment. Completely humiliated, the playboy bellows for them to call the restaurant's boss and points his finger arrogantly, asking if the employees don't know who he is. He beats his chest, introducing himself as Fang Chao, and demands they ask around the city about the untouchable status he holds. With his hands in his pockets and a shiny necklace, the young master calmly descends the stairs, scolding the preppy guy's shouts and telling him to get lost, so as not to scare away the real customers. Shocked, the hare recognizes Yi Chen and tells the trash to get out of the way, claiming he wants to speak directly with the establishment's owner. Maintaining his relentless posture, the president introduces the vice president beside him and announces that he is the true owner of that restaurant, leaving everyone stunned. The redhead's eyes widen, not believing what she just heard, while her boyfriend recoils, dazed. The preppy guy goes into denial, accusing the ex-delivery guy of lying and stating that Zheng Hong wouldn't sell all his restaurants to an app-based loser. The coward threatens the young master, using the old matriarch's name, guaranteeing that she spent millions to prevent the young man from having any business in the industry in the city. Without blinking, RMC turns to the cleaning lady and promises to multiply her salary for that month by 10 if she lands a good broom smack on the preppy guy's face, and the employee attacks with gusto, hitting him squarely. The rich guy spits blood, falling backward, as the cleaning lady curses him, warning that his identity doesn't matter because she only follows her boss's orders and money. Rubbing his swollen face, the playboy concludes with hatred that it was Wei Chen who sabotaged the surprise, deducing that the ex-husband acted that way because he was crazy with jealousy over the marriage proposal. The redhead blushes violently, blindly believing the same theory, and reaffirms to her ex that the proposal has nothing to do with her, trying to provoke him even more. Observing the pathetic scene, the president calmly retorts, guaranteeing that in his restaurant, his rules must be followed without exception, and that no one throws a party without prior permission. The preppy guy laughs, doubting that the useless ex-security guard would have the money to buy the entire restaurant, and deduces that he is just putting on an act as the vice president's puppet. Leaning on the young man's arm, the executive smirks and confirms that she owns a few shares in the place, just to not fully expose the boss's true power to the still deluded enemies. Laughing haughtily, the rich guy downplays the importance of small shares, suggesting that with only a few percent ownership, The delivery guy shouldn't be so arrogant since he is the real heir there. The playboy opens the box again, revealing the Tiffany engagement ring, dazzling the redhead and the guests who watch the grandeur of the jewel from afar. He gets on one knee in front of his wife, flaunting the 3-carat precious stone valued at 4 million, and snubs the bodyguard, saying that even if he worked his whole life, he could never afford it. Holding the sparkling ring, Fang Chao makes the official proposal, while the woman in the black dress remains silent. With her eyes fixed on the redhead, the vice president quietly comments that the rich guy is doing everything to humiliate the boss on purpose. The president mutters that if his ex-wife accepts the playboy's proposal, he will finally be free of her, with a clear path for his own ambitions. The young master looks at the redhead with an enigmatic expression, eagerly awaiting her final decision. Instead of accepting right away, the woman deflects, suggesting her boyfriend think it over, since that restaurant has its own complicated rules. The coward gets the message and puts the box away, promising not to rush her and giving her all the time she needs to make the final decision. As soon as the playboy puts the jewel away, the redhead encourages him to use all his charm and money to buy an even bigger ring next time. The girl tries to justify her refusal, claiming that, as the most beautiful in Yunzhou, she has dozens of rich men at her feet, and throws it in her ex-husband's face that if he claims to be the president, he never even gave her a single diamond. Ignoring her false illusions, our MC states that he is nothing more than a useless ex-husband and wonders what the point is of her rubbing other men's proposals in his face now. Showing off her black cleavage, the redhead accuses her ex-husband of betrayal, swearing that if it weren't for him deceiving her, she would have given him a 21-carat diamond ring right there. She throws it in his face that in a whole year of marriage, he only took her to see a movie about rings at the cinema, completely forgetting about romance, and refuses to accept that the promised compensation ring never appeared. With a cutting look, the president just mutters that she's lying badly about that story and points to the small, forgotten box in her hand. Annoyed by the response, the woman turns her back, huffing, and calls her ex-husband a liar, guaranteeing that his actions are nothing but fake. Inside a private room of the restaurant, our MC drinks coffee, while the vice president concludes that even though she refused the ring, the girl will eventually give in after a few more of the playboy's attempts. She questions the young master if he will act to prevent the union, or if he will let them get married and then reveal himself as the powerful president just to make the woman regret her choice. Placing his cup on the saucer, the young man confirms with a smile that she only got half of his plan right, revealing that he has different and more cruel intentions. With a look full of contempt, he decrees that he will not wait for them to make their union official on paper, but will act directly on the very day of the wedding ceremony, destroying her dreams at the most important moment. The young man's mind projects the scene of the ideal wedding, where he will appear as the trillionaire heir at the exact moment she thinks she's marrying into wealth, and he will rip away her illusion. The reckoned realize too late the empire she lost forever. All decked out in a wedding dress, the ex-wife reflects on how she blew her chance to marry into a truly rich family, still imagining our guy wants her back. Chilling on the sofa, our boy sips his coffee as the executive informs him that someone has just arrived. Right on cue, the assistant reports that security confirmed the singer's mic was illegally swapped before the show started. Impressed by the situation, the vice president praises our boy's sharp observation skills. Just then, the henchmen catch the culprit drinking with his friends and demand that he spill it all. Cold, our guy asks him straight up if that scumbag Zhong Wei was the one who sent him. Sweating bullets, the guy looks away, making it crystal clear the suspicion was spot on. Without wasting any time, the young master demands the guy's phone, but the punk tries to act tough, asking who he thinks he is. Losing his patience, our boy steps forward, saying he'll just have to take the phone the hard way. Interrupting the scene, the beauty offers to handle the situation herself. The little thug scoffs, making fun of our guy and doubting that a skinny woman could ever overpower him. He shamelessly checks out the executive's curves, complimenting her body with obvious ulterior motives. In a flash, the woman grabs the creep and slams his face hard against the table. Screaming in pain, the guy yelps for help as the phone slips from his hand after the impact. The executive then tosses the recovered phone right into her boss's hands. With the phone in hand, our boy carefully examines the screen, looking for the evidence. Boiling with rage, the thug calls the woman a nasty name and lunges at her, promising to finish her off. Quick as a whip, the vice president lands a devastating kick that sends the trash flying. Smoothing out her dress, she apologizes to the president for interrupting his tea time. Blown away by her strength, our guy even thinks to himself, asking for her protection. Staring down at the defeated goon, the beauty warns that if he wants to wrestle in bed, she'll play until he drops. Lying on the floor, the coward groans in pain, hearing that he's not worthy of enjoying that kind of treatment. With a seductive glance, she makes it clear that only a truly powerful man deserves to compete with her. Cuffing nervously, our boy plays off his embarrassment and confirms the phone does indeed have messages from Zhong Wei. He immediately decides to call his jealous rival to settle things once and for all. Watching the scene, the woman thinks that after 3 years, the young man might still have feelings for his ex-wife. Determined, she plans to make her boss experience the charm of a mature woman to help him forget the past. On the other end of the line, Boss Zhong answers, calling out for his trusted henchman. Confused, the old man realizes it's not his subordinate's voice and demands to know who's on the phone. Relaxing in his chair, our guy mocks his rival's short memory, reminding him that just a few days ago, he wanted to ruin his life. Startled, the businessman recognizes the voice of the Wang family's useless son-in-law and asks what he wants. With a cold smile, our boy asks if the old geezers still has the nerve to ask that after sending thugs to stir up trouble at his restaurant. Stunned by the revelation, the rival can't figure out how a guy with no resources got the money to buy the establishment. Regaining his swagger, the old man warns that he's been in the food industry for decades and that the young man will never defeat him. Accepting the challenge, our guy declares that since his enemy plays dirty, he'll use the same methods to wipe him off the map. 20 minutes later, the scene cuts to the fancy facade of the rival restaurant, Lu Wai Lu. Marching toward the location, Lord Lu's hulking goons arrive, ready to do some damage. In hushed tones, the thugs confirm the young master's orders to stir up some basic trouble inside. Inside, old Zhong celebrates the arrival of important foreign guests and tells the chefs to pull out all the stops. A desperate waiter runs in, yelling that the foreign clients are foaming at the mouth and dropping like flies. Chaos erupts in the luxurious dining hall, with people collapsed on the floor as the boss panics. Watching from the street, our boy and the executive witness the results of their perfect plan. The news of the mass poisoning spreads like wildfire, attracting dozens of ambulances and curious onlookers. Kneeling on the sidewalk, the old man cries his eyes out, knowing the reputation of his multi-million-dollar business is completely destroyed. Soon, the gossip races through the city, confirming that everyone who threatened our guy at the banquet went bankrupt and vanished like smoke. 2 weeks later, the Wang family gathers for a banquet, gossiping about the bizarre bankruptcies of the city's big shots. Chatting at the table, the relatives note how all the influential people who wanted to screw over the ex-son-in-law ended up broke. With a sneer, the uncle in the suit doubts the former delivery boy has the power for such revenge, thinking he's just the executive's lapdog. Changing the subject, the cousins excitedly mention that the playboy Fang Chao has already proposed to the redhead 9 times in a row. Satisfied, the old matriarch praises the rich man's devotion and warns that constant refusals might offend his family. Glass in hand, the redhead decides she can't delay her plans any longer and promises to accept the proposal at the God of Song's concert the next day. To celebrate the decision, the entire family raises their glasses, toasting to the girl's upcoming new marriage. Suddenly, one of the cousins notices that the coward Xiaoji has vanished from the table. Hiding in the hallway, the preppy kid makes a desperate call to our guy, spilling all the tea. Scared stiff, he tells him about the concert plan and swears he can find a way to ruin the proposal if the president gives the word. Surprising the spy, our guy tells him to do absolutely nothing and let the redhead accept the proposal. Sitting in his office, the young master guarantees that the playboy's fate will be far more miserable than his was. Trying to suck up, the lackey swears the redhead sleeps alone and has never done anything intimate with the rich guy during their dates. Showing no emotion, the president cuts him off, saying he couldn't care less what the two of them do together. Playing with fire, the spy doubts his coldness, but our guy warns him that his next sentence is going to be quite philosophical. In a threatening tone, our guy asks if the spy would rather focus on offering up his own sisters for him to marry, calling in that old promise. Scared to his core, the coward immediately sends some steamy pics of his sisters, swiped right from their phones. Showing off his relative's curves in her lingerie, he tries to convince the boss that she's a beauty who will make him forget his aches. Without an ounce of patience, our boy simply blocks the over-eager idiot on the app. After a deep sigh in his chair, the president reflects that his ex-wife is finally going to make their romance public. Cutting to the big event, the singer on the glittering stage announces that the next song is a special request from a fan in love. With the mic in his hand, the playboy Fang Cho declares his love for the redhead in front of thousands of people. Kneeling with a giant diamond ring, he officially pops the question as the crowd goes wild. Screaming, the people in the stands think the extravagant scene is the most romantic thing in the world. Blushing and smiling, the ex-wife finally says yes to the rich guy, shining under the stadium's spotlights. Disguised in the crowd, the vice president watches it all and concludes that our guy's history with that girl is completely over. With a sly smile, she turns her back, determined to win the good man for herself with no competition. Later, at 11 at night, heavy rain pours down on the roofs of the luxurious Rose Villa. Opening his front door, our guy is completely stunned to find the executive standing on his doorstep. Shivering in a drenched white dress, she apologizes for the intrusion, explaining she lost her ticket and got caught in the storm after the concert. Sitting on the bed, the redhead confirms she agreed to the playboy's marriage proposal. With his shirt unbuttoned, our guy lets out a heavy sigh upon hearing the news over the phone. Looking out the window, the young master declares that the retaliation against the Fang family has officially begun. The executive quickly reminds him that the rich guy's family is top tier and asks him to explain the plan of attack. She then details that the enemy's empire is focused on express hotels, valued at 3 billion. No time, our boy pulls out his phone to make a decisive call. Straight to the point, he calls his Uncle W, leaving the beauty shocked by his familiarity with the global hotel magnate. Over the phone, the young man says he's calling to talk business and show off his skills in the market. He quickly asks if the old man remembers the Yijia Hotel in China, revealing that its owner is constantly begging for financial aid. With a wicked smile, the president tells the magnate to push his rival's business straight into the ground. On the other end of the line, the mysterious man laughs in the shadows, accepting the mission to clear the path for the future head of the Yi family. Stunned by the call, the woman's jaw drops, amazed that a single phone call can bankrupt an entire family. However, she warns that the bankruptcy will take a couple of months, and the redhead's wedding is happening much sooner. Full of confidence, our guy assures her that he's already arranged for people to act in the shadows right now. Far away, Lord Liu asks his henchmen if they've all fully recovered from their beatdown. The old mob boss immediately orders his guys to take some ladies to the Fang family hotels or just rent rooms alone. Explaining the dirty plan, he tells them to look for hidden cameras or install new ones to leak compromising footage and tarnish the hotel chain's name. Holding the reports, the executive praises the scheme's speed and continues her explanation of the rival's family tree. In their conversation, she reveals that the playboy Fang Qiu doesn't work and is just waiting for his father to pass on so he can inherit the fortune. Paying attention to the details, our boy notes that the main focus is to put pressure on the old man's wife. A majestic woman steps out of a luxury car, turning heads at the hotel entrance. With firm steps in her red heels, she exudes the power of someone from an elite family. Looking regal, the madam walks surrounded by security guards as the executive warns that this woman has a very dangerous history. Staring at the photo, our guy is surprised by the stepmother's beauty, joking that the playboy didn't inherit the family's good genes. Whispering the gossip, the beauty explains that old man Fang used despicable and violent methods to marry her in the past. Unconcerned, the young master says he has nothing to fear from the Liu family's minor connections. Later, problems start erupting in the rival companies, with widespread bankruptcies. Behind the wheel of his car, the preppy kid screams desperately into his phone, not understanding the sudden hole in his accounts. Whimpering in fear, he calls his dad, begging for 100 million to cover the colossal loss. His father explains that the hotel magnate ordered an aggressive expansion and then suddenly abandoned ship. Furious, the father warns that times have changed, and he doesn't have the guts to cross the foreign billionaire. Losing his patience, the playboy says that investing 2 billion in one go will lead the entire family to absolute ruin. Cutting off the tantrum, the old man tells his son to shut up and promises to send 500 million just to get him to stop freaking out. The coward instantly changes his tune, thanking him for the cash and promising to make it grow exponentially. Curious in the passenger seat, the redhead asks about all the happy screaming on the phone. Full of himself, the pretty boy brags that his dad's extra cash will soon turn into billions in his hands. To show off, he mocks our guy, assuring her that the good, for nothing could never afford that kind of fortune to support a wife. Surprised by the nasty jab, the girl looks away, reminding him that the marriage certificate is already signed. In a sweet voice, she asks to be called Oni, since she spent the last 3 years coldly calling her ex by his full name. Hugging her from behind, the scumbag agrees to the pet name, but uses the chance to spew more venom against the former delivery man husband. With the invitations in hand, the redhead demands to be taken to the Huaxing headquarters to rub the party in the president's and the executives' faces. Cynically, the playboy asks if they shouldn't also deliver one to her trashy ex-husband. Pulling out a blank invitation, he gives a devilish smile, planning to humiliate the former delivery boy in front of high society. Scribbling a taunting note, the scumbag dares our guy to show up, wanting him to squirm with embarrassment in front of the rich folks. Pleased with his own idea, the rich guy invites the redhead to sleep over at his place, claiming he wants to relieve some company stress. The girl promptly refuses the invitation, using the old excuse that her grandmother forbids living together before the big day. Annoyed at the wheel, the preppy kid grumbles to himself that the woman won't let him lay a finger on her and is playing hard to get. Looking out the window, the redhead sighs, upset, blaming her ex-husband for forcing her into this rushed engagement with the playboy. Standing before the imposing Huashan Group building, she laments ever meeting such a useless guy in the past. Walking elegantly through the halls, the vice president hears the bride to be praising the noble aura a wealthy marriage brings. Accepting the fake compliment, the executive takes the luxurious invitation from the girl's hands with a sly smile. Lifting her chin, the redhead proudly confirms that the grand ceremony will be on May 12th. Her eyes widening, the beauty instantly realizes that's the exact date of our guy's birthday. Shamelessly, the ex-wife confesses she's perfectly aware of that, justifying it by saying her fiancé insisted on the date. Sharp as a knife, the executive takes a jab at the girl, asking if the date was chosen out of blind love or just to intentionally erase the memory of her ex. Nervous, the redhead lies through her teeth, saying she tried to convince her fiancé to change it, but it was no use. Changing the subject, she asks if the great mysterious president is in his office so she can deliver the other invitation personally. With a mocking look, the executive tells her to go on in, thinking the idiot has no idea who the real boss is. Pushing open the heavy wooden door, the girl enters the luxurious office, her heart pounding with anticipation. Seeing the man's silhouette from behind, the redhead freezes, finding the powerful president's posture identical to someone from her past. As he turns his face, our guy reveals the truth, shocking the woman who is still trying to look for the real president around the room. Cold as ice, he asks if he can help her with something, demanding she hand over whatever she came to deliver to the boss. Reading the taunt written on the invitation by the coward Fang Chao, our guy raises an eyebrow at the audacity. Her face hardening, the girl arrogantly announces the party will be on May 12th, mercilessly rubbing the painful date in his face. Crumpling the paper in fury, the young master warns through gritted teeth that he wasn't the one who set that cursed day. With a murderous glare, he asks if the viper knows she's digging her own grave by marrying someone else on his birthday. Shaking in her boots, the redhead backs away, terrified by her ex's killer pressure, realizing her provocation went too far. Handing back the paper, the president accepts the invitation on the spot, vowing he'll show up to show them what a real top-tier party looks like. Pinning the woman against the door, he asks in a dark tone if this pathetic choice is what she really wanted for her life. In desperation, the girl shoves his chest hard, telling her ex to stay far away and not ruin her perfect moment. Delusionally, she imagines our guy will get wasted at the reception and make a disgraceful scene because he still loves her. Pointing a finger defensively, she warns that since he wants to come to the event so badly, he'd better keep his mouth shut and not cause a scene. Beating a hasty retreat, she flees, feeling a bizarre chill in her chest as she recalls the protagonist's sinister smile. Right behind him, the vice president appears, commenting that Fang Chao is literally asking for it by messing with that date. With murder in his eyes, our guy orders the executive to notify all their partners for the same day, preparing a trap to overshadow the enemy's ridiculous wedding. Pleased with the plan, the vice president smiles, certain the surprise banquet will make her boss understand her true feelings. Soon, the morning of May 12th arrives with balloons on the street, while a furious scream echoes from afar, complaining about more lost money. Dressed in a suit and tie, the playboy shouts into his phone, unable to understand how his supposedly safe investment collapsed out of nowhere. Far away, his father throws papers in the air, cursing with rage as dozens of his companies went bankrupt in the same week. In a panic, the coward realizes his 500 million had turned to dust completely. Trying to find some logic, his friend in a suit asks if he offended someone powerful, because a 100% failure rate is impossible. Confused, the pretty boy swears he only annoyed the redhead's useless ex-husband and immediately dismisses the delivery boy as the cause. The friend quickly theorizes that some pervy rich guy obsessed with the girl is attacking their businesses out of pure jealousy. Livid with rage, the fiancé blames the woman, calling the redhead cursed for making him lose $500 million before they even got married. Ever calm, his partner reminds him that his family is still very rich and suggests he go work for his old man's main company. With a wicked smile, the playboy agrees, saying the supposed rich guy might win in business, but he's the one who'll be enjoying the wife at night. Back at the hall, the redhead tries on her wedding dress as the groom sneaks up behind her. With a hand on her shoulder, the creep drops a disgusting pick-up line, telling her to get plenty of rest because the night is going to be very tiring. Disgusted by his comment, the ex-wife hangs up on him while her cousin in a red dress asks what's wrong. Repulsed, the girl complains about her fiancé's vulgarity, confessing she's only marrying him for the money and remembering that our guy was at least a gentleman. Not missing a beat, the cousin points out the irony, saying it's pretty bold of her to wear white for one man while praising the qualities of her ex. With her head down, the bride fears she has no future with our guy, afraid he'll already be married to someone else by the time she finally divorces the rich guy. The Viper forcefully drags the girl by the arm and pulls her in front of a mirror in a dramatic gesture. Showing her the reflection, the woman in red asks what kind of man in the world would have the nerve to refuse such a beautiful face. Full of venom, the cousin guarantees the delivery boy will remain wrapped around her little finger, serving as a lifelong backup plan. Meanwhile, in the luxurious Fang family mansion, the tense atmosphere between the groom's parents is thick enough to cut with a knife. With a sour face, the old man complains to his wife that the expansion plans are too aggressive and are draining all the company's cash. Arrogantly, the stepmother in the red dress shoots back, saying she hasn't used a single cent from her Liu family and offers to ask for money if he wants. His pride wounded, the old man refuses the handout, shouting that he'll prove his own worth to the relatives who always look down on him. To calm the fight, the man hugs his wife, reminding her that today is their son's wedding and they should focus only on the party. Changing the subject, the madam criticizes her son's decision to invite the useless ex-delivery boy, demanding they focus only on their elite guests. The old man then announces that the vice president has confirmed she is 100% attending and tells his wife to treat the group's mysterious president very well. With a sly smile and blushing cheeks, the woman promises that when she meets the magnate, she will serve him in the best way possible. At the luxurious garden villa, the sound of a sports car door breaks the afternoon silence. Leaning against the vehicle, the executive informs the young master that the time to act has finally come. Adjusting his white suit, our guy decrees that today the entire city will find out that he was the powerful magnate all along. The beauty agrees, eager to see the look of terror on the ex-wife's face when the truth comes out. An hour later, luxury cars pull up to the fancy hotel as receptionists greet the region's big shots. In the main hall, the bride is mesmerized seeing politicians and tycoons fawning over the Fang family, feeling like she hit the jackpot with this marriage. Suddenly, a buzz spreads through the event announcing that the legendary president, Mei, has just arrived. Shocked, the guests whisper that the old man is #1 in the country and in the top 20 richest people in the entire world. Quick to suck up, old man Fang Xianzu asks how he earned the incredible honor of having China's richest man at his celebration. Straight to the point, the magnate says he came to bless the couple, but his main focus is to personally meet the great president of Huaxing. Utterly confused, the groom's father is baffled by the influence of this mysterious boss and promises to call the vice president right away to locate him. Everyone in the room comments on the magnate's fame, while the bride watches the commotion, completely enchanted by such power. Lost in her own delusions, the girl daydreams, wondering what kind of woman would be worthy of marrying such a divine and wealthy man. Snapping back to reality, she lets out a frustrated sigh, glancing at the playboy beside her and deciding to stop fantasizing about the impossible. With his phone to his ear, the groom's father breaks into a huge smile, announcing he's heading to the door to welcome the illustrious guest with open arms. Pointing down the hall, the old man announces that the great boss and the executive have just arrived, making the playboy ecstatic, thinking he's finally made it. At the tables, guests gossip that this president destroys giant companies and causes bankruptcies for fun when he's bored. With the stories swirling, the Wang family's old grandmother gathers everyone to see the face of the feared tycoon right there at the entrance. The white luxury car screeches to a halt in front of the red carpet, grabbing everyone's attention. Poligs on display, the vice president steps out of the vehicle, stealing the show with her beauty and commanding presence. At the entrance, the guests hold their breath, knowing the person right behind her can only be the city's all-powerful kingpin. With a wide smile, the woman informs the groom's father that the company's mysterious owner has finally appeared to grace the wedding. An expensive dress shoe steps firmly onto the ground, heightening the suspense as everyone tries to identify the tycoon. Dressed in a flawless white suit and exuding an overwhelming aura, our guy steps out of the car, silencing the entire crowd. In a clear, formal tone, the executive introduces our guy as the great CEO of the multi-million-dollar conglomerate. In shock, the redhead's world crumbles, completely terrified to see her useless ex-husband in the position of absolute king. Right behind her, the jealous cousin stammers in fear, refusing to believe the app delivery driver is the untouchable billionaire. Blind to the truth, the groom's father rushes to suck up to the young man, saying it's an indescribable honor to have him at his son's wedding. The playboy's stepmother studies our guy's face, marveling at the young man's absurd youth and good looks. With ulterior motives, the young master compliments the old man's wife right back, brazenly calling her a true beauty in front of everyone. Covering her warm face, the madam smiles like a fool, completely melted by the younger magnate's charms and compliments. Unable to take it anymore, the playboy points his finger, spitting venom and accusing our guy of being a ridiculous phony who's just the executive's bodyguard. In the middle of the drama, China's richest man rushes over to our guy and gives a bow that would make the suits in the hall green with envy. Full of respect, The magnate explains he dropped everything in the capital and came here personally just to have the honor of meeting our guy. In front of the shocked bride and groom, the old tycoon reveals that the young man's grandfather is his greatest idol and respectfully asks about the old man's health. Humbly, the billionaire asks for permission to add the young man as a contact on his social network, and our guy coolly accepts the flattery. The crowd goes into a frenzy, stunned to see the country's top dog practically begging for a young man's contact info like a star-struck fan. Quick goodbye. The rich old man says he has another super important meeting and leaves, a tense and shocked atmosphere hanging in the air. Before anyone can catch their breath, another desperate voice shouts the president's name, cutting through the silence of the hall. On his knees, the man in the suit sobs like a child, banging his head on the floor and begging our guy to leave him alone. Recognizing the guy, the playboy asks why on earth the supreme head of the delivery app is groveling to his former employee on the carpet. In tears, the man confesses he traveled to the capital to beg for his job back, but the great CEO told him he'd only be forgiven if the young master allowed it. Slapping his own face, the defeated man bellows his apologies for offending the former delivery boy in the past and begs for a shred of mercy. Desperate amid the chaos, the playboy's father tries to warn the kneeling man, thinking he's lost his mind and is humiliating himself in front of the wrong person. With fury in his eyes, the man curses Old Fang without mercy, blaming him and stating that the CEO himself confirmed the all-powerful man's identity. Drenched in sweat, the groom's father finally connects the dots, realizing that threatening phone call at the banquet was 100% real and fatal. To make matters worse, the owner of the rival restaurant appears out of nowhere, completely disheveled, and lies on the floor, slapping his own face while begging for our guy's forgiveness. In the chaos, the rivals trade wild punches while shouting at the Wong family that they were forced to ruin the banquet and are now begging our guy for forgiveness. Sweating profusely, the playboy's father starts putting the pieces together, suspecting that this Ye Chen might actually be the untouchable president of the Huaxing group. But the skeptics laugh in his face, pointing their phones and swearing they'll use a facial recognition app to unmask the supposed magnate. Checking their screens, the redhead and the groom panic when they see the app has confirmed the shocking result. Stumbling back in astonishment, the uncle in glasses drops his cup, refusing to believe the useless ex-delivery boy is really the billionaire who owns everything. Desperate, the bride's mother fakes a faint to avoid facing the wrath of the ex-son-in-law they had humiliated so much. Pulling his wife by the arm, the redhead's father yells to get to the hospital and escape the rich man's revenge, leaving their daughter behind at the altar. Screaming in the middle of the hall, the relatives flee like rats while the playboy's parents curse the Wong family's cowardice. Completely terrified, the ex-wife approaches, asking if he came here to see her get married again. In shock, the cousin in red stammers as she confirms his identity, unable to accept that the magnate had been living under her roof for so long. Her voice cracking, the bride cries, cursing her own stupidity for not realizing the person she loved most was disguised as a delivery boy. Stepping in front, the vice president shoves the woman hard, telling her to get her paws off the president and not to touch him. Her pride wounded, the redhead accuses the executive of stealing her love, throwing it in our guy's face that he himself had sworn eternal love in the past. Rolling her eyes, the gossiping cousin loudly reminds everyone that their old grandfather arranged the marriage knowing everything, and she threw a golden opportunity in the trash. Are cold as ice, our guy ignores the waterworks and tells his secretary to drag the woman away to stop the pathetic little show. Watching the drama, the guests conclude that Ye Chen only showed up to ruin the ceremony and steal the bride back. Shaking in her boots, the playboy's mother thinks the idea of her daughter-in-law being stolen is terrible and wonders if the magnate came just to destroy their entire family. Facing the chaos, the groom's father takes a deep breath and politely asks if the president came to steal the girl or to make peace. Overcome with emotion, the redhead deludes herself completely, thinking the man at the top of the world came to humiliate himself just to have her back. Without mercy, our guy twists the knife, telling her the viper is just an ex-wife and he couldn't care less who she chooses to marry. Outside the hall, the bride's parents speed away in their car, telling the driver to floor it to the hospital. Waking from her fake faint, the old woman screams like a madwoman in the back seat, horrified that she kicked the city's biggest billionaire out of her family. Punching her own face, the old woman curses her ignorance, lamenting that the Wong family just lost their ticket to rule the world of the rich. Back in the hall, the playboy's mother smacks her son across the face, calling him an imbecile for offending such an honored guest and telling him to apologize immediately. Crawling on the floor, the coward bows his head, trembling all over, apologizing and admitting he wanted to humiliate the ex-son-in-law but ended up as dust in the process. Completely ignored, the pretty boy is left hanging as his parents beg our guy to sit down and receive their official apologies. With her arms crossed, the executive announces she won't forgive anyone, refusing the glass of wine offered as an apology. Grumbling, the playboy tries to hold on to what's left of his pride, refusing to kneel and serve wine so he doesn't lose face in front of the suits. Indignant, he swears something is wrong, doubting a real rich magnate would accept being humiliated by living off others. Convinced of his own lie, he spreads the rumor that the guy is still a poor loser and the vice president only staged the whole charade because she's into the delivery boy's body. Gossiping with his father, the playboy accuses the executive of faking the facial recognition app and points out that the guy's height in the news was completely different. Amused by the crazy theory, the old man lets out a malicious chuckle in the corner. Going on the offensive, the groom points his finger, spitting that our guy is just a body double bankrolled by a rich woman to try to make the redhead die of jealousy. The stepmother defends our guy, asking how on earth China's richest man would beg to meet some random phony if it were a lie. To prove his point, the playboy argues that the Chinese magnate himself was acting strangely today, reinforcing the idea that the guy in the news is much taller. Immediately, the crowd starts murmuring, buying into the insane idea and remembering that on TV, the president seemed much older and more imposing. With a cold reply, our guy calls the pretty boy an idiot and points out that faking information on a national app would require a technological security miracle. Sweating like a pig, the playboy yells that the guy is terrified of his lie being exposed and just wants to ruin the party before the truth comes out. Confident in everyone's stupidity, he calls security and orders them to kick the two mutts out of the restaurant on their knees. With tears in her eyes, the redhead begs our guy to confirm if all this wealth and power is really a lie. Desperate, she asks her ex not to play with her feelings, warning him it would be a cruel joke to invent all this just to try and ruin her new marriage. Lifting his chin, the young master gives a cynical smile and states that if lying helps her sleep better at night, she can believe whatever she wants. Laughing, the ex-wife dries her tears and insults the young man, breathing a sigh of relief, thinking she didn't lose the real trillionaire and calling him a bastard. Completely clueless, she gets aggressive and grabs her red-dressed cousin's hair, hitting her furiously for getting smacked over a sham. Shocked, the uncle in glasses tries to break up the catfight, asking if the ex-delivery boy is crazy enough to forge the identity of the big boss. Screaming at the top of his lungs, the rich man demands an immediate divorce from the brawling woman so as not to drag the rest of the Wong family through the mud. Huffing with rage, the old woman swallows her pride, unable to talk back in front of so many people. To calm things down, the groom's father suggests everyone have some tea first, leaving the score, settling with the phony for after the couple exchanges rings. Watching the circus, the executive whispers to her boss, indignant that those lowlifes still dare to doubt the magnate's true identity. With a heavy sigh, our guy concludes that aside from the most delusional ones, the rest of the city's rich families must know the truth without question. Pulling the woman by the waist, the young master reminds her that today is also his birthday and asks if she has anything nice to say. Raising her champagne glass, the beauty wishes him happiness with a seductive voice and a warm gaze focused only on him. As they toast, they're interrupted by a shout from the hall announcing the arrival of another very illustrious guest. With wide eyes, Old Man Fang recognizes the all-powerful president of a billion-dollar tech group making an appearance. Beaming, the millionaire visitor shakes the groom's hand and praises the host's sharp memory for remembering him after so long. Full of himself, the playboy's father feels on top of the world, thinking the unexpected visit from the capital's magnate has given his ceremony a huge status boost. The happiness quickly fades when the newcomer pulls his arm back and says he has zero interest in talking to the Fang family. Confused, the old man doesn't get it and asks if the guy didn't come to drink wine and give wedding gifts to his son. Noticing the package in the magnate's hands, the playboy's eyes widen as he immediately asks if the tycoon brought him the legendary and incredibly expensive box of cigars. A bit awkwardly, the millionaire visitor apologizes, saying he can't pronounce the name of the fancy foreign cigar he so carefully prepared. As he opens the box, the crowd gasps, recognizing the brand that costs an absurd fortune of $7 million on the luxury market. Explaining that the item is worth about that much, the visitor quickly cuts things short and asks to be excused as he moves through the crowd. In a hurry, he approaches the table and bows respectfully to our guy and the executive. With a broad smile, the magnate extends the $7 million box and wishes the young master a happy birthday in front of everyone. Frozen, the gossiping guests shout that the outrageous gift was exclusively for President Yi Chen all along, not the groom. The women in the back speculate in shock, realizing the guy didn't show up for any wedding, but because he's a partner of the great boss. Keeping up appearances, the groom's father tries to force a friendship, saying the magnate was very generous to the faux phony at the event. Desperate, The redhead refuses to believe it and cries, trying to make sense of how the head of a trading company would beg to give gifts to a good for nothing. Suddenly, a thunderous roar comes from outside, signaling that the restaurant lobby has turned into a complete madhouse. Holding her glass, the executive lets out a fatal little laugh and comments that the real luxury show has just begun. A frantic lackey runs in, reporting that dozens of rich presidents from the city have arrived at the main gate all at once, without even being invited. The assistant stammers nervously, saying they all lead major companies and are demanding to be let in at any cost. In shock, the Playboy's stepmother covers her mouth, unable to understand what kind of bizarre situation is unfolding in the hall. Trying to come out on top, the groom's father demands they make room and add more tables, thinking everyone in the city decided to suck up to his rich kid's wedding. Deluded, the Playboy takes all the credit, bragging that the small companies came to kiss up to his supreme status in the business world today. The blind with jealousy, the redhead watches from afar with a tight feeling in her chest. Ever since her ex-husband set foot in the hall, everything has been bizarre and overwhelming. Fake as ever, the new guests greet the Playboy's father, pretending they're there for his wedding. Finding the new faces strange, the old man squints, trying to recognize the businessman he's never seen in his life. With a sly smile, the Playboy confirms that all the new companies in the hall are the ones he blew his own money on in recent weeks. Laughing internally, the executives point at the idiot and confirm that those trash companies where he lost millions have now all been transferred. Desperate, the father grabs his son's jacket, demanding to know what the heck is going on with his investments and the borrowed money. With wide eyes, the Playboy confesses, trembling, that the 500 million turned to dust in the blink of an eye, and he's bankrupt. A loud smack echoes through the hall as the father slaps the coward across the face with blind fury. Throwing it in the bum's face, the old man yells that he managed to blow $500 million and ruin the family in front of everyone. The redhead holds her breath upon discovering that the promise of multiplying the money was a lie and that her fiancé is completely broke. Sweating with rage, the Playboy tries to blame the girl's ex-husband, saying our guy planned everything against him. Panic sweeps the hall as guests push the bride and groom aside to get close to our guy and kiss up to him. Begging for mercy, the small business owners drop to their knees before the president, pleading for the love of God not to destroy what's left of them. Realizing the depth of the hole they're in, the rich man's father orders all the intruders to be thrown out to avoid any more public humiliation. As the goons remove the intruders, the old man turns to the ex-delivery boy and demands his son's lost money back in a threatening tone. Full of arrogance, the father demands the ex-husband pay back double the money to compensate for his son's humiliation. Cold as ice, our guy tells the old man to shut up and ask his own son what crimes he committed to deserve this punishment. Adjusting his suit, the president states that the lost amount is nothing more than pocket change he spends without a second thought. Trembling with regret, the redhead does the math in her head, realizing she kicked away the chance to own an absurd fortune of billions. Thinking he has some pull, the Playboy's father reminds him that he's lived in the city for decades and has dangerous friends who can settle things with bullets. Seething with rage, the old man threatens to send the mob to collect the debt if the money isn't deposited immediately. Mocking the threat, our guy smiles ironically, asking who these supposed mob brothers are that the old man trusts so much. Trying to talk some sense into her husband, the stepmother rushes to the old man, warning him that this fight is going to cost them dearly. Completely out of control, the old man shoves his wife to the floor, cursing her and telling her to shut her mouth in front of everyone. In a smooth move, our guy catches the stepmother by the waist, preventing her from face-planting on the floor as the Playboy explodes with jealous screams. Outside, the rich man's father celebrates with his arms in the air, seeing the arrival of his heavy-hitting allies. The goons get out of the van with great fanfare, but the old man doesn't realize who the real boss leading the group is. Kissing the mobster's hand, the Playboy's father thanks the feared Lord Liu for coming, certain that victory is in the bag. The mob leader quickly cuts off the bootlicking, shoving the old man out of the way and saying he doesn't want any gifts from poor people. Left alone at the entrance, the groom's father stands there with a dumb look on his face, not understanding why the mob just blew him off. Arriving at the table, the old man points at the group and threatens the young master, trying to intimidate him. Before he can finish his sentence, the brutes walk right past the old man and bow with their faces to the floor in front of our guy. With trembling hands, the powerful mob boss holds up a small gift and wishes the real big boss a happy birthday. Sweating profusely, the mobster reports that the package was sent directly on the orders of the respected butler Fang. Absolutely terrified, the groom's father stammers, trying to explain it was all just a joke as he swallows his own lies. Coldly, the young master tells the gang to quietly get lost because he came to have a good time and doesn't want to cause any cheap trouble. Before leaving, the mob leader locks eyes with the old man, threatening that if a single hair on the young master's head is harmed, it will cost his entire family their lives. Horrified, the rich guests confirm that the young man has the entire city in his hands, both in the light and in the shadows. Excited, the guests raise their glasses, toasting to the birthday of the day's true protagonist. Satisfied, our guy raises his own drink, thanking them for the wishes but ironically pointing out that the stars of the show should be the bride and groom. Straightening his suit, he curtly announces he won't be staying long because he has to get back to work soon. Swallowing his pride, the playboy's father watches as our guy's fury and desire for revenge crush his own family's chances. Dressed as a bride, the redhead feels her perfect party has gone up in flames and realizes she'll become the laughingstock of the entire city if she goes through with the wedding.